Welcome to Benno and Hamflett In Your House, a podcast reviewing WWF's iconic New Generation B-shows in order from the bust back to the boom. I'm Michael Hamflett.
And I'm Benno. I'm Michael. What comes to mind when I say to you the words Nashville Municipal Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee?
Well, I spent my day working hard on the go, but the hands on the clock were spinning too slow. I couldn't wait to do this show with Benno tonight.
Oh, see, I'm losing my voice from too many Christmas parties, so I'm gonna struggle to sing along to it. But that is exactly what comes to mind when you say the words Nashville, mate. Jeff Jarrett. That's what comes to mind.
God.
The mayor of Nashville, clearly.
We've talked about this before. We both like to fancy ourselves as people masquerading as professional podcasters. And one of the great curses of the podcast game is you see that feed and it gets to maybe episode 3 or episode 4 and schedules or effort has sort of revealed themselves to be more challenging than you might have first thought. And you're just like, do you know what? I think I'm going to knock this one on the head. Having watched this show, I think we had a good run. Let's just call it a day. I got all the Jeff Jarrett I could ever want, and frankly, then some. And I think my motives for doing this podcast were revealed at the second attempt, and it was a hell of a run. And Jarrett and the Roadie, after this show, I'm just ready to bowl out of town.
Well, that's the nicest anybody's ever broken up with me. But I knew this was your secret plan. Jeff, the podcast, will be obviously our secondary project there. Or we could just do it like I say, Nashville in general. We could cover that. Like for me, like I say, Jeff is the mayor of Nashville. When I think of Nashville, all I think about is cowboy hats. I think of Vince McMahon pretending he likes Nashville for some reason, which is all over this show. I think. You know what it is? It's the perfect wrestling thing, this, because there's a bit of Jeff here, but like I feel like Nashville as a place is like, it's the most wrestling place you could imagine, because it's got a gimmick, which is cowboy hats and cowboy stuff. But it also feels a bit neon as well. It also fits like it fits in this world. I picture like red and blue, like neon lights in these clubs where there's a man with a lone guitar with like a little, obviously gun on his holster, cowboy hat. We're just showing our ignorance as usual with this. Basically, I'm picturing Jeff is what I'm doing when I'm picturing Nashville and a bar in Nashville. That's what runs through my mind.
Totally agree. I've got "in Jeff's house" in all caps in my notes because that does indeed feel like what we're walking into. The number on the "In Your House" logo on the door is 1624, and I was googling 1624 Nashville just to try and find and there's nothing. There's a bunch of addresses that have got 1624 because Americans have those long streets that we don't have. I don't think there's any streets in England that get to 1624. But I saw 1624 on the door and I was like, there must be a Nashville reference. I couldn't find one. But what I did find when I was looking through these various different Nashville addresses was houses that either looked exactly like the bar you've just described, with like sort of all the brown wood paneling, neon guitars hanging out the front, or the white "In Your House," like the actual sort of white picket fence, big white walls, like out the front and stuff like that. It just, yet again, we found ourselves, whether it be in like City of Terrifying nightclub or like country music superstar, it's just another bit of America that we get to live in for a couple of hours, if for nothing else, just to review a wrestling show. I've become increasingly aware, only if you include the Housekeeping's 4 episode into this, that our like ulterior motives just explode out of these reviews as soon as we get started. Oh, I wanted to talk about Jeff Jarrett. I wanted to think about American stuff. They're just revealing themselves over and over again.
I just want to decide where in America I'm going to settle. So we're going to go through this list of different "In Your Houses" and it'll be like, could it be Seattle? Could it be, probably not Syracuse based on our reputation, right? Could it be Nashville? That's how we'll figure it out 100%. And that's it. It sounds like a great place to live. Jeff is the mayor. You know, the Roadie is like his willing secretary or assistant. Like, that's just what I picture when I look at these places. But yeah, it's a very, very wrestling place. Got some wrestling lore in there as well. And going back in the day with Nashville as well, it just seems the perfect home for me and you this week.
I love it. This is that era still where not every venue was getting like swallowed up by sponsors. So you just wouldn't get municipal auditoriums anymore. It'd be like a State Farms arena or a crypto coin event. It was something like that. You'd not municipal auditoriums or veterans armories and places like that. They're just dying on the vine, aren't they, in the place of sponsorships? But like Vince calls it the city of dreams, and he mentions like the Grand Ole Opry. I know, like on episode 1, we thought, like when we were a kid, are they going to give a house away every month? It does feel like he's doing work for the tourist board, doesn't it? Because it is yet
100%.
again another big sales pitch the whole night.
He's proper shoehorning, and even Lawler as well. Lawler brings up Garth Brooks, somebody called Bay Pearl. I don't know. I know about as much about Nashville as it sounds like I know about Nashville when we those descriptions. Like I was going to say Jim Ross, not Jim Ross. Jerry Lawler throws in a "Can you step right out of town" joke to Vince as well, which is a bit, obviously that's Vince probably wrote that down and asked Lawler to do that. But it does feel like Vince is going through like a weird crisis, because he's just saying all these romantic things about Nashville, and like you say, he calls it the city of dreams, a city of dreams that could also crush a man's soul, I think is what he says. I'm like, I think that's a lyric, or Vince is having a breakdown on screen. It's one or the other, but it's like it's In Your House 2's Mother's Day, which was all we got in Your House 1. What's the theme this time? Nashville stuff and random country singers you've never heard of. It's
obviously it's a total dream to get this much Jeff Jarrett, but like there's probably no greater contrasting piece to that final Nitro when Vince gets to revel in sacking Jeff as there is this pay-per-view, where like you've got the usual opening where it's Vince and Jerry Lawler at ringside. As you say, they're both just cowboy hatted out the ass pretty much. Jerry Lawler's like Elvis as the king rather than the King Jerry Lawler. They couldn't be more Nashville music scene. And Vince is talking about Jarrett defending his belt, whatever, and singing live. Like, you'd be forgiven for not even realizing Diesel was on the card. Like, it's a
Jeff territory.
So there's like they sweep around the building, and you see obviously the In Your House set again. We love it, but it's a poster this time instead of a screen, in the big window. But what's even bigger than the White House set is the 2 massive J's on the back of the stage. How has he done it? How has he taken a company with 0 budget and got them to blow the lot on a pay-per-view dedicated to himself on a show that he ends up leaving the company off of?
He literally gets his back, doesn't even shoot the angle at the end. The most Jeff pay-per-view ever. It literally is. We always say on GRAPPL, you can throw a pin at any point in wrestling history and you'll find Jeff Jarrett, or Control F Jeff, we call him, because he'll be somewhere in wrestling history. And that's because he's got these skills that he manages to Jedi magic these promoters. That was exactly it. It is purely like it's a Jeff Jarrett production in every single brilliant way, down to, I'm losing the belt, am I? Fuck yous, then I'm off. Oh, you're trying to turn me and Roddy against each other? Fuck yous, then I'm off. It's the most Jeff thing ever.
The pre-show, the Todd Pettengill fronted pre-show from the Mania Studios has little video packages for all the matches. Jeff Jarrett and the Roddy are in 4 of them.
Mate, that video, the With My Baby Tonight, like video, like as a kid, like I just thought that was a real song. Like it was on the telly so much. Even my mum and dad were like, "You listening to that song again?" It's not by choice. WWF is making me watch it and listen to it, and actually think I might be a country music fan right now. That's how much they were ramming it down your throat, man. 100%.
I get this. I get grief in this very studio from my colleagues Wilborn and Sidgwick about how I don't really have much in the way of like a sense of occasion in real life. I'm not a big Christmas guy. I'm not I don't necessarily give that much of a toss about bonfire night or fireworks night or anything like that, unless it's wrapped within WWE wrapping paper. Like ceremony should exist not at Christmas, but at WrestleMania, my Christmas. It's just like that's where like all things should live. And I think I got like that happened to me in country music. I don't need country music entering the charts over here or on the radio, but I do want With My Baby Tonight to somehow get known by more people, because it can't just be my wrestling fan brain that thinks this is pretty good. Like, this song is good. About that just consumed by wrestling that I listen to. Like, wrestling has one stab at country music, and I think, well, they've completed that. There'll never be a better country song because the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment has had a pop at it, and they've completed the game at their first attempt.
What do you mean it's not available in the shop? I was told on the FTV that this was the #1 country song in the world. Honestly, I was the same way. I really thought this was a good, and to be honest, it is a good song. And you know why? Because Jim Johnston's a genuinely good musician. Like he's fantastic. He's a genius. I think he's out there on the stage in this pay-per-view, isn't he? As well, it literally is like all guns blazing. For whatever reason, Vince McMahon. I haven't read this. I haven't listened. I've done a lot of prep here to get ready for this. I haven't heard this anywhere. I just assume he went on a holiday at some point and went to Nashville and just found himself on like the best night out of his life and was just like, right, what are we gonna do? We're gonna put a pay-per-view there, and we're also gonna we've got this Cowboys adjacent wrestler, right? We're gonna make him a song and we're gonna make him the biggest star of the company because that's where the money is. That's where the stars are. It's like a weird obsession that's come out of left field.
It's like, again, it's because specifically it's Jeff Jarrett of all people. You know, like we're going to talk a lot about the rise of Mabel across this show and indeed more shows to come. And you can pretty much throw a dart at a period in WWE history and there'll be some wrestler that just feels out of place getting the push they're getting. That's the way of the business. Sometimes you've got to take a punt and who knows who's going to become a big star. But when they're in a position where so few heels especially are getting over, you've just baby faced Shawn and Diesel after they've been like two of your top heels in 94, but you've not really replaced them with anybody else.
No.
You would think from watching this show that they are not just having Jeff lose the IC title, they are hitching the wagon to him to become like a top title contender within like the next 12 months. You would be completely forgiven for thinking this is your night. You pass this test, go and do your live singing, go and have your match. And if this goes as well as we think it can, like yours is the moon and the stars and everything on it. It is quite astonishing how things play out, which I guess we'll get to after the match, I suppose. Like,
that's the world we're in. Like, you know, we're about to, the show we're reviewing, it's In Your House 2, the Lumberjacks, but it could literally be In Your House 2, Jeff, because obviously those names are retconned, aren't they? And if we'd left on better terms, maybe they could have, the Ballad of Jeff, maybe that's got a nice ring to it. Like it could have been called that instead. But yeah, we are here to talk In Your House 2, the Lumberjacks, as I say, it's been named in post, obviously from the Nashville Municipal Auditorium. This is July 23rd, 1995. If you didn't already, listen to our Housekeeping episode. They will provide the stitching between main In Your House reviews available in your audio and your video feeds if you happen to miss it, where we went through the previous pay-per-view, King of the Ring 1995, which was in the middle of these two In Your Houses, like we talked on Housekeeping, a slightly disappointing show that I believe numbers wise was slightly disappointing as well. The stats for this one, for In Your House 2, we've got an attendance of 6,482. Again, pretty good numbers in the time here in Nashville. And buys of, and I had to double and triple check that this was true. Again, 280,000 is the number that we've got here. Well, let me just double check that. That might be an edit for me. Sorry, the number was 332,000. Buys for the pay-per-view, which is up from the 280,000 buys from the first In Your House. Like I was checking Wikipedia going, that can't be right. Like checking Meltzer, looking in the numbers, that can't be right. The numbers are going up. We were told this was the doldrums here, Michael. What's going on? And they're doing a pretty good business, all things told.
I mean, it is proving what we've known all along, that like Jeff was and always will be a massive draw. But what I think is most interesting about like the numbers going up is that even though I remember at the end of our kind of In Your House 1 review, we sort of summarized that already they were kind of struggling to figure out how to do like a budget pay-per-view, whether it be with the finishes or the layout or the structure or whatever. I would say the buy rate has proved us wrong. It's actually, people have felt satisfied enough with the money they're spending for the product they're getting. Again, Todd Pettengill notes on, I think it's the pre-show, it might be on one of his interviews here, like you can't afford a movie with popcorn for $14.95, but you can afford to watch In Your House. And they've really hit upon something, whereas the big four that year, like, and I happen to think, with the exception of WrestleMania, the other three shows really stand up for themselves quality-wise, but it exposes how thin the roster is on a 3-hour Rumble or a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam where there's a bit of prestige. There isn't any prestige within Your House. They are in a rare position where there is zero expectation. And if they're delivering you a world title match or something we're going to get onto on this one, like of such a quality, I can sort of see why fans immediately think, yeah, this is absolutely worth my $15. If anything, this is probably more worth my $15 than that WrestleMania was 25 or whatever the WrestleMania price was. It's they kind of sort of stumbled backwards into a winning formula?
It's a great idea, and obviously, longer term, they then realize, well, now that we've convinced them all about monthly pay-per-views, guess what? We're going to put the price up, and the numbers don't really change. And obviously they go down from this early point, but case in points, look, from comparison's sake, we're saying there In Your House 2 with 332,000 buys. King of the Ring, obviously much more expensive. 150,000 is the buy rate for that one. Obviously, attendance of 16,000, which beats this 7,000 here, but there's clearly something there, I'm not a mathematician, Michael, but you do double the buys for half the price, you make the same money. So they haven't lost.
Not working out.
At least at this point, it works itself out. And then, like I say, longer term, they start to realize we could charge a little bit more, and then eventually it just becomes the same for everything. But yeah, it's a nice little cash cow in this period.
Did it stick out to you as well? And that, obviously, we always end up kind of dating these podcasts based on whatever kind of current or topical thing we might reference when we're reviewing an illustrator. If you're watching this in 5 years' time and the wrestling industry's changed the million ways it can change over 5 years, we're here in late 2024 and we're seeing AEW only really able to draw big houses for pay-per-views. And that really sticks out to me here is there is a certain expected quality that 1995 WWF offers, that 2024 AEW offers, that cannot necessarily be replicated on television. You're not getting, you're still doing Raw from the gyms with the basketball hoop in the background. You're still doing these dynamites from, you're still doing dynamites from these empty venues realistically. And then the pay-per-view comes around, and for one night you get to pretend that things are fine. And you keep using the word because it's the exact word that we've been told and is proven, the doldrums, and it's going to get worse on this journey before it gets better. But I was reading the torch that you very kindly supplied ahead of this, to sort of get a sort of a feel for what the company was in financially at the time. And I just want to read quickly ahead of or in and around In Your House 2. The Barbarian, Afa, Lou Albano, Doink and Dink, Stephanie Wyand, Tony Gurria were all let go. Duke Drosy was, but he was brought back. King Kong Bundy, Hakushi, Mantar, the Heavenly Bodies, Techno Team 1000 are all rumoured to be on the chopping block. Obviously, some would go, some would stay from that list. This was again from the torch. WWF has lost millions of dollars in the past few years from declining house shows, declining buy rates, major legal bills from the Vince steroid trial, and high real estate bills. There are genuine discussions about renting out Titan Towers to more of a business corporate building than simply being WWE HQ. I mean, you'd know geographically what kind of building that was in terms of the surrounding area. I was never fortunate enough to visit the Mecca itself. But
that story in a house one day. Spare yourself half an hour, mate. You're getting that full tale.
I want that. This is I go back to this as kind of the easy shorthand reference. This is the water coolers getting taken out of the offices era. There is no avoiding it, no matter how much I like it, that not enough other people did.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the world that we're in. The other notes I have from the torch there is that even Owen Hart was considered as a possibility of on the job.
Yeah.
It's noted that, he'd had apparently put his fist through a window or something like that at one point because he got fired for being 15 minutes late for a show. And Wade Keller says, if it wasn't for Brett, Owen was on the chop. Obviously, both morbid and otherwise, the sliding doors there, obviously, but someone as valuable as Owen Hart, who's an upper mid card, fantastic performer heel, is someone that company is considering releasing if Brett doesn't come in and go, come on, mate, you're not getting rid of me, brother. That tells you everything, doesn't it, about this period? That's why, these In Your Houses and this idea of making a little bit more money on the side, from house shows that we'd have set up anyway. Let's just send some cameras and we'll do it. We'll do it as a pay-per-view. Are worth the wait and go because they're looking for any which way to save money. I joked about it in Housekeeping, but genuinely, they're sending blimps up because it's cheap to get a blimp and just fly it to where the local sports game is and go, look, it says WWF. That's their advertising during this period. They're making pennies on as far as television contracts go. The Observer from this week talks about they're having to and fro with USA Network about what's going to happen. Completely different world. They're getting paid tens of thousands rather than the millions and billions that the TV deals are now, and they're going back and forth with USA Network about whether they get 2 minutes of advertising for themselves to sell on or 5 minutes, which would be much better, and they're trying to pretend pretend they might be doing a run. I think it's to the E Network at that point, just to threaten to get a few more pennies that they can find down the back of the sofa, just to pay for that extra wrestler to make it so that you don't have to release a Duke the Dumpster Droese, or you don't have to release some of these lower card names that you aren't using all the time. It's a crazy place to be, and not a place where there's any job security in this period, unless you're Jeff.
No, well, indeed, and they're so. It's funny, isn't it, when you say about I remember like reading about the E Network. They're kind of like flittering their eyelashes at that. They're very lucky to have a network like USA that clearly cares about that product. Like USA was such an ally to Vince, and you read about is it Kay Koplovitz and Bonnie Hammer, and these people have always fought for WWE because it was good for them in like a golden era, that they were like, this could come good again, and obviously they were proven right, it would come good again. But I think it's in like Sex, Lies and Headlocks where it talks about when they were proper, obviously, because this is just pre-Nitro, like July. By the time we talk about the next In Your House, it will be the first of the WCW Nitro era. So the industry is just about to have like the next sort of atomic bomb shift, ultimately.
Yeah.
But by 96, when it's getting its arse handed to it by Nitro, it's people at USA that offer television advice as a way to bring back ratings. It's not just as simple as book a better product. It's about like recaps, and about if you're going to daft stuff, if you're going to have pyro, clear the smoke because people can't see it. And like tiny little television production things, a bit like how we're doing this in the shadow of a Saturday night's main event, and it's always talked about how Dick Ebersol completely transformed what WWE looked like and gave them this massive advantage. Like they were so lucky that the USA Network were loyal to them, because I don't think now a wrestling company would stand a chance with these, like everything we hear about these ruthless TV execs that are desperate for content that works. If that content stops working, you're nothing. They'll kick you out like that in order to get something that works instead.
That's it. And it's one of those situations where there's, at least until recent history, wrestling, no matter how good the numbers were, and I believe, the numbers were pretty decent enough for Raw, it would be topping the cable charts still during this period. But, USA aren't making any ad money on it because it's that fucking wrestling shit. And there isn't really that much of a monetary, help for them. And that's it. It's like, you don't have that backing. WWF off telly at this point, like it's game over, isn't it? That's the only thing that's like, it's the shop window for the pay-per-views, it's the shop window for the house shows, because that's still kind of the old business model. Like Nitro eats their lunch and then some, without it. Like the gigantic, say, E Network, they get about half the clearance of USA Network at that point. So if that had happened, again, sliding doors, who knows where they would have ended up. And obviously, the fact that that's still a relationship to this day, or at least depending on when you listen to this, for Raw at least, and obviously not SmackDown, like it's a crazy thing that it's like it's been the one constant, and it's maybe something that they didn't appreciate as much as they maybe should when they were shopping themselves around to again subject matter works, the Nashville Network, TNM.
Indeed,
over there.
It's just this is a year on. It struck me that this is 1 year on from the steroid trial ending, and like the legal bills, like Jerry McDevitt's retainer, whatever that was, being enough that like the business would still be struggling to cover whatever the costs were to like have the council to keep Vince McMahon from going to prison. Like you're a year on from that. Like now they'd throw that money away on like a wrestler's contract or something without a second thought. But I'm sure it's not as dramatic as hand to mouth, but it feels that way, doesn't it? Every bit of data you read about the World Wrestling Federation reads like, well, fingers crossed next month draws. Otherwise, who knows what could happen then? I can't reconcile that with what I thought of this product as a 10-year-old in 1995. Never once considering that this was going to go away, and you realize kind of how close, and we're going to get closer, how close to the precipice it did get for a bit.
And that's it. Again, everything circles around to Jeff here, but that was another note from the torch. Like until he did, take his bags and go home. Like Jeff was taking outside bookings because the rate was too good for to do. I felt like, what? They're offering to pay you that? Go ahead, go for it, mate. I'd do that if I could. I'm sure. Like was the quote from Vince. Like that's how low we are. Like it is. It's a almost indie level in a lot of ways. But I will say, Michael, where they did have some money and they were still paying the fantastic graphic designer, as people will be able to see on screen. YouTube.com/@Benno Hamflett. We could put an and in there. It's a weird thing with different symbols on it on YouTube, but you'll find us. And if you're watching the video version, you're right here now. Welcome. Happy to see you. But yeah, the video version of In Your House 2, the VHS cassette, again. Oh, fantastic work, mate. Chef's kiss. The color coordination here from what looks like a purple into a pinky red, bit of green on top. Obviously, we have our. I feel like the diesel on the front of this with Sid feels a little bit like one of those where like the wheeling out a picture from maybe a year earlier, rather than 1995. He looks like Bodyguard Diesel compared to current. Well, Sid looks like Sid Justice from 1992 to me. Sean and Jeff are looking good though. Good to see them getting their pride of place on here. What you make of this one? A fantastic job in whatever the equivalent of clip art was in 1995.
I mean, it's magic and it's absolutely shit, isn't it? Like, I love it. I love it with all my heart, but my God, I remember those red breakout boxes with the Federation Championship and whatnot. Like, I remember having like a primitive version of them, probably on like Microsoft Word 95 or Word 97 or something. And if you look, it even feels like little things that stick out to you. The verses between Shawn and Jeff, it's just not quite right. It's just like the alignment off. The alignment's off, and then like if you look at where the 2 is on the spine in comparison to In Your House, they've not quite lined it up. Our favorite blue and yellow WWF logo on the spine has been stretched from the top rather than from the corner. You can see how it's like. Yeah, there's all sorts of little bits like that. Brilliant. I also love, and I don't know who to give credit to here. I don't know if it's Silvervision, Coliseum Video, WWF, who knows? But I love on the back where it advertises the dark matches that we will cover in a little bit of detail, but not as much because they were both kind of boring. When it says American TV, it feels a lot like those like posters you get over here, doesn't it? Where it says like American TV wrestling.
American wrestling. Like, it's like, yeah. It's totally that. That's featuring a lot of the wrestlers actually that probably did those loops, 100%.
But that is absolutely made for idiots like me and you in Woolworths, like begging our moms, going, but not even the Americans have seen that, and they've seen everything. If I get this video today, I'll be in front of the Americans. Come on.
It's like the t-shirts they try and flog on this, where it's like the Sid versus Diesel t-shirt. They've got like the baby faces wearing them backstage. I can imagine being a kid going, I want that one. That's the special one. I'll never be able to get that one again. It's for this. This is a very important event. Look at the lettering on it. It's proper stuff. It's for this, as the video tape background says for Silvervision. It's a Premier World Wrestling Federation mega event. Of course I want the t-shirts. Of course I want this VHS.
Barry Dzinski very accurately pointed out that it's the only t-shirt that he's aware of that'll have both Diesel and Sid on it, because they're such big rivals, obviously. And clearly, Benno, the people at Etsy agreed, because the last one that went for sale on there was a 2XL size one that went for $236.
What? All right, sod the WhatCulture t-shirt show. Don't show this to any of your colleagues. We're starting a t-shirt store and we're selling them. Get Davinsky on the phone. Let's sort it.
There's hang on, a blow the roof off the house one on Pinterest. It's the same t-shirt. Amazing. I think it might be the Etsy link. Yeah. So the last one went for around $240. So we can start bootlegging them. That's it. We'll start going to BritRes shows and just start bootlegging these In Your House t-shirts.
I think people are buying. Would we sell them for more or less than $16 that our mate Barry was flogging these for a good price too? Not too bad.
And this is the thing, right? The problem is that if we bought one off one of them eBay sellers, it's them getting all the money. I want Barry to get his cut, because he deserved it, having it go in that locker room of absolute bastards in 95 and getting bullied like live on a pay-per-view. I think it was Shawn just like digging him in the back, and I was, oh God, they were calling him worse than shit the second the camera was off. And I was like, mate, whatever percentage you're getting from these shirts, you've earned it.
I think that, no, but like, because obviously this is a Lumberjack theme show, any like bit where like Diesel or Razor or Shawn are having to share screen time with Bart and Billy Gunn or anybody like that, Techno Team 2000, those types of guys. They're all high fives and friendly, and the second that red light goes off, it's like, fuck off, you cunt, get out of our room. Imagine that, but being the faceless ring announcer or our boy Barry. What a bloke, we love him. He does his best. He does his best.
It's Undertaker frustrated that Henry Godwin and Karma are heels, so he can't send the BSK boys into the locker room to do something about it because it'd break kayfabe, wouldn't it? You know, that's it.
That's it. Gotta respect this business. Gotta be done. But that's a great segue, from the VHS cover into the pre-show, which still not a free for all. It's still a pre-show. At least according to where we found it on YouTube. It is available there. There's a few different versions of it floating out there. If you had the notes from this, like say, other than our mate Barry Pettingill, of course, doing hosting duty. He does call this the greatest card ever assembled for 1495, and I know you'd agree, and I would probably agree that when I was 11. A stretch, mate, bit Tony Schiavone that, bit of a push, but he recaps the stories for us as only our boy Todd can do.
It's just, again, this feels like it must be like a UK fan experience, or I think we've both talked about how what you would do as you were becoming a deeper and deeper wrestling fan is that you would get these Coliseum videotapes out of order. So by this point, you might, whatever access to wrestling you've got, you're just feasting on it. So any time that a pay-per-view video or anything would have extra stuff like the video package that set up the match or the clips from Raw or Superstars, whether it was like King of the Ring would always show you like a brief clip of the qualifying match, for example, you were just elated to have it, because it was that just extra little snapshot of them. It might be what they were in different attire. It wasn't a match that you'd seen over and over again. The one that sticks out to me is like, I remember like seeing WrestleMania 7 before I think I'd WrestleMania 7 before the Royal Rumble 1991, or like certainly I didn't have the full Rumble 91 tape, because I remember in the magazine, like, and just the devastation that Slaughter had beaten the Ultimate Warrior. That's something that like really sticks with me from that age. But the clips they show of Savage's attack in the WrestleMania 7 video package, like what he does to the Warrior at the Royal Rumble, like I know those clips and the faces they pull from that match inside out, because I would just watch that attack over and over again, because it was like, it's a flashback. It's a flat, like there's deep lore going on here, and it wasn't that wasn't the case with every pay-per-view match. And I still think we talked about this, I think, on Housekeeping. We're just about to start ticking over into a bit more of an episodic model for these pay-per-views. You're getting almost no like out of nowhere matches. Every match is kind of born out of a little scuffle or a rivalry or something like that. I think we're the monthly pay-per-view pretty much kills any need for there to be any wasted time on a pay-per-view.
Absolutely, that's it. Like, there's a lot of. It's funny for me in that, like, we've talked about it, like in that, for you, this is second nature, these shows, and you remember them like the back of your hand. For me, what I remember like the back of my hand is the TV from this period. It's the angles that they would show you over and over and over again, like we talked about on the very first Housekeeping. One of the angles that's all over this pre-show, other than Jeff, who does eat up a lot of the screen time here, is that Sid turning on Shawn angle. Like that one as like the thread and the needle here, that you get a bit of Todd recap of everything that goes on. Bam Bam Bigelow, the fucking loser, getting binned off by Ted DiBiase is in there as well. But it's they show you the King of the Ring, the little bits of the King of the Ring 95 highlights as you work through. But all of those little bits, especially Sid turning on Shawn, feel like I replayed and rewatched a million times. They sold that stuff so well, and yet you're right, it's almost more memorable than the matches themselves. Yeah,
it's you've mentioned Bam Bam Bigelow, and like obviously we'll talk more about him. I pity him. The man has got flames tattooed on his head, and I pity him. Like, how does it happen to him?
Mate, he did it to himself.
God damn it! And like, I think I was a bit of a truther at the time. I think I was genuinely worked by Bigelow just having he'd been around. He'd been there since like late '92. He'd worked Brett. He'd had some pretty big moments. I was ready to like enjoy watching him and enjoy cheering him. And fucking hell, already he's being like othered, and like there's that. They don't show this in this pre-show, but obviously quite an integral part of what brings the show together is that famous Raw scene where like Bigelow's playing cheerleader, like, come on, guys, dudes with attitude, get back together, Shawn and Diesel, and then like they do the high five and they do the hug, and it's like, right, fuck off, Bigelow, we don't need you anymore. Like,
even the pose, because Diesel's dead cool, Shawn's down doing Shawn, and Bama just has to stand on the side like, nice one, lads, orange cat.
We did it. Like, there's three of us in a way, like there's a bit where like
promos as well, like every time one of the Click members has a promo, like say Diesel's like, yeah, my best buddy Shawn, and Bam Bam, he'll be on the other side with the Lumberjacks as well. you can't sell it, can you? They're just annoyed at having to put up with him. It's the make your mum
nothing that you can do.
Take him in your group, come on.
What's going to happen if I throw Sid out to your side of the ring, Bammer? Ah, yeah, Diesel, I'm going to set him on fire. And it's like, yeah, you've done that one, Bigelow, like 4 times. Have you got anything else in your locker at all? Like that.
Oh, he's got nothing. He really hasn't. And he's all, because I think the backstage politics as well, because the Click are running roughshod, and he fucking hates them too. Again, he's having to try and sell it on
it's
camera.
Like,
great.
That's it. He's got, that episode of The Simpsons where Marge has to like keep reshaping that one dress she's got into a bunch of different outfits. It's like, how many ways can Bam Bam Bigelow mention fire in a promo? Like, and he's got his little jacket and that little 2-step thing he does to set his firework off. Like, have some self-respect, mate. Like, it's just, I really.
It's coming off the back as well. It's like I kind of half get the logic. Like the thinking is, we've just had this big, spectacular WrestleMania, and he was in the main event, and he had all of this, like, what mainstream like publicity, I guess, that he was in there with this big celebrity. But you're forgetting that he'd lost to that celebrity and looked like a fucking goof. So you're already onto a loser, and you're doing it in the background of, and that he is, as well as Jeff, the main character through the show is Shawn Michaels. You've just turned Shawn Michaels too, so like he's just hasn't got a chance, has he? Like everyone's gravitating towards the Shawn turn and that being this fresh, new, exciting thing, and Bama's just the other one who turned as well, who lost to the fucking celebrity. I don't even know why they're trying. I don't get it.
And far be it for me to even attempt to pass comment on Bam Bam Bigelow when I've not done the legwork that you've quite recently done on that man's career. I have way fonder memories of Bigelow, and we're going to get to it later on, stepping on our own dicks covering it early, but like, has he got the matches? Was it like not a psyop? What's that thing called where everybody just gets fooled by like a Mandela effect, that like we all spent enough time just typing the words best big man that we allowed it to become true. And this is coming from somebody, by the way, I don't know if this is a hot take. I'm not a massive Vader guy. I like Vader, but I don't love him as much as a lot of people love Vader, right? I'd probably, gun to head, I'd probably like pick someone like an Earthquake over a Vader if you're talking like a big lad out there doing stuff. Just for example. There'll be others, but I'm just not. The more Bam Bigelow watch in full, the more I'm questioning my own like memories and recollections.
It's reputation, isn't it? It's like when the first time you get an Observer subscription or a Torch, first thing you're taught is Sid doesn't know how to work. Lex Luger was never any good. Bam Bam Bigelow, he's great. Vader, he's great. And and often it's right, absolutely. And like I say, I'd say we did the matches on Vader, and they are definitely there. I've got a big soft spot for Vader. But Bama, we did the GRAPPL mixtape where we tried. And he has some good performances, and he's athletic, but I think he just gets, and this might be controversial to some listening to it. I understand. I might have been outraged until I try and did that project. You tell me your top 5 Bam Bam Bigelow matches. I'm not starting Willie Regal angle here, but tell us what we could possibly be missing. I think he just sleight of hand. Well, he's a big fat guy. He went to Japan for a bit. He's like Vader, and he just gets talked about in those terms. And, I'm not sure it's open to being my mind changed, because I feel bad for Bama, based on his use on some of these shows, and there's something to be said for his longevity and all the different places he went. Obviously ECW is a good example. There's a couple of good matches in there later on, but don't know if it's necessarily there with him. But yeah, he gets a big cameo in this in the pre-show. So was the only other real notes on there. Like I say, the Shawn Sid stuff that we'll talk later. Shawn in her Shawn with his baby face stubble. We talked about Brett on Housekeeping. Big fan of that. You're changing character. You're changing from face to heel or the other way around. Grow a mustache. Grow out a bit of some chops. Grow your hair out. Changing your look. Big part of what works in this Shawn Michaels babyface run. That's a big part of this show, and another reason Bama kind of fades into the background. But the pre-show outside of that is very much the Jeff show. He goes to see Buddy Lee, whoever that is. More pushing for his album. We got a full rendition of "With My Baby Tonight," the video. The rest of it's just pure Jeff.
I've just got to point out before we move to the main show, because they're recapping Diesel and Sid's like go home angle with the Lumberjacks and stuff. I've said it before. I'll probably end up saying it on about 6 of the first podcasts we do on this show. I think Diesel and Shawn Michaels is the best aesthetic in wrestling ever. The two of them, the height differential, the way that they kind of match, but they kind of don't, and it's that exact perfect amount. There is a certain physical chemistry to Shawn and Diesel as partners, as opponents, that I just think looks perfect. There's a shot in this Raw Go Home promo where, like, Diesel, as you've talked about, he's always at his best when he's kind of just cool hand Luke, and he's leaning against the turnbuckle, and Shawn's leaning up next to him. And that shot of them in the corner of the ring is one of those like iconic Shawn and Diesel visuals. Yeah, and they were really good at sensing when they were doing that, and it was like you could sort of set that good wrestler instinct where it's like, or at least Shawn certainly had it, where it's like, this is a good photo opportunity. Let's hold this pose just for a second, because this look like, here we are, top of the tree. There's a lot of fucking losers around this ring, but we're the stars. Like they were really, really good at knowing how to look great. Like, it's what genuinely one of the things I'm most excited about when we get onto Triple Header, because it's just a feast for your eyes every time they're on screen together.
Even in that angle you mentioned there, Diesel slapping hands with the baby faces, and they all get like a generic hand slap. Shawn comes along, he gets the big jumpy one. Even Razor gets a good one too. Me and my brother used to try and redo the Diesel and Shawn. I've
got my youngest son into that. My youngest son Josh is the Shawn to my Diesel. I just raise the hand up higher each time, and he tests how high he can jump.
But you're absolutely right. It's interesting as well. Obviously, we've switched roles, at this point, and Diesel is the top guy. Shawn can't help but bring eyeballs on him. That's always going to happen. But he kind of does seem to respect his role. Does seem to respect. I'm the IC guy. The big guy's the whale guy, and it is fun. It's like you're watching. That's the biggest difference to Diesel and Bama trying to force it on camera, and Diesel and Shawn just chewing scenery, just being mates, because they're actually mates, and it makes all the difference. It really does. I love all of that stuff. But that's it. Plenty of Shawn, plenty of Jeff in the pre-show. But there's a little plug for the Superstar line as well in there as well. That's another big thing they're pushing as well. I tried that number. I don't think it, unlike 0891-299-888, I don't think it exists anymore, unfortunately. But that does take us into the show itself. Like I say, a lot of Nashville, a lot of Jeff, Vincent, and Jerry Lawler playing off that with all of the different jokes we don't have included in the video version, and I couldn't see it anywhere else. There is a dark match, Skip versus Aldo Montoya. Apparently goes 4 minutes. I don't think we're missing much. Aldo Montoya again, one of the many geeks in the backgrounds of a lot of these shots. But we do start hot as we go into the opener, which is the Roadie versus 1-2-3 Kid. And as you said when we were previewing this one, Michael, like, this one stuck out to me as like, Roadie working a match on a show. What are we doing here? And then you realize, the story they're setting up, and obviously the real life stuff behind this as well. And look forward to chatting this one that wasn't hugely on my radar, and one that I didn't realize was pretty well regarded as a match. 3 1/4 stars. Dave went back there, maybe not too much on old money, but so start thoughts on the two men in there. We got like I say, Roadie he's a funny one. He's a main character on this show. He does surprise me that, like, through this match and the story through the night, that he is definitely getting a bit of a push. The idea is for of course it to be, and I didn't know this at the time, like, I just assumed that's a question. Did you genuinely believe Jeff sang With My Baby Tonight? Did you, at the time, have any inkling that there was any phoniness going on?
I was on the hook completely. I was just like, especially because, like, obviously, the wrestlers like to talk about Road Dogg having this nice singing voice, but it must be like similar accents or similar parts of America. You can kind of hear it. You can hear Jeff Jarrett's voice in the Roadie's voice as well. They're close enough. You know what I mean? You couldn't have, if the voices were too different. If it was Shawn Michaels with that gravelly voice, for example, or Brett with a more sort of monotone, you wouldn't have carried. This totally tracked, didn't it? That it could be Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, I believe as a kid, like when they do the eventual like reveal, I was kind of like, really? Are you sure? I feel like that was actually Jeff. Only to find out that it wasn't. But apparently it was all over the date sheets at the time. So if only 11-year-old me then I just managed to get me one of credit cards and not spent all of our money on ringing the Power Slam hotline instead a couple of years after this. But he's in the.
This would have been. Yeah, Power Slam telling you that this would that was the voice of Lee Roddy. That was their big thing, wasn't it, at the time? Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, that was it. That full name. Like they always throw that in there. But yeah, he's in a weird role in that, like, he's getting this baby. He's ready to get this baby face push. It would seem. But he's like the least Vince McMahon wrestler you've ever seen. He's so indie in every way. Like, even look at him. You're a big gear man. You know, I want to get into 1, 2, 3 Kids lightning blue kind of outfit. He's got a good singlet. Singlet always provides more real estate to do a bit more with. I'm always a fan of that. Roddy's like, and it's what got him over, I suppose, in '98 in the end. But it's like t-shirt and pants, and they don't even look ironed. It looks like he's just rolled out of bed. He's got the dreads. Like, it's just like there's nothing. He looks like an indie wrestler. He looks like a cosplay wrestler for a better sense of the term. And like here, we'll get into the match, but like he couldn't have been put over stronger as the opening to the show.
I think the saddest thing about and, you know, I don't think this is an era, but we'll just, for argument's sake, we'll just call it the ruthless aggression era. That period of time where the Fed was shite, right? 2006
20 years. That's 20 years, mate.
That particularly weak era for like internal talent development where everybody was short-haired and jacked and the John Laurinaitis cookie-cutter Florida factory guy. One of the saddest things about that was that, like, business was fine enough that you could just have that be the directive and you were stuck. Here it isn't. So you do kind of have to just go with what you've got. And the Road Dogg, as the Road Dogg in 98, just as much as the roadie here, looks nothing like a WWE wrestler. But that's what makes him such a good fit. Because when you have no choice but to take chances on what people are good at, sometimes things blossom. It's not that different than how ECW existed, because how else does the Sandman find where he fits? How else does, I can't believe I'm saying it, a Tommy Dreamer become a star anywhere? Do you know, you have to find like a unique selling point. And for the longest time, and it would happen again and again and again, Vince McMahon's WWE required the selling point to be, you've got to figure out how to be a WWE superstar. But in certain down cycles, the wrestlers themselves got a little bit of power back and a little bit of sort of, well, you haven't got anybody else. And if I've got this strength that nobody else has, you might just want to stick with me. And in the Roadie's case, one of his strengths was singing. Yep. Another one of his strengths was being an unbelievable stooge manager, which I think in Housekeeping we talk about at length with William Shatner. And here, and I really think this is a skill, I always have to bow to your knowledge of this sort of thing. You've run the ropes. I never will, hopefully. But
didn't run them well.
It looks so hard to play bad wrestler, but the Road Dogg here is playing a guy that can't wrestle as well as he actually can, if that makes sense. Like, the match starts with like the kid just kind of like being quicker than him, being faster than him, being slicker than him. And then like when the kid's on offense, he really lays it in. It makes it look like the 1, 2, 3 kid is not a big man, but he just looks like he's leagues above the Road Dogg in every respect, because the roadie is like reducing himself as a sort of a trained wrestler to make it look as if Jeff's manager's gotten in the ring and the kid's battering him and giving him what he, like, I know the roadie had that like King of the Ring run, but even that was presented as a bit of a fluke, and he's sort of squeezed by Bob Holly, and now he's in there with a kid, and he's going to eat some shit for his crimes that he's committed against the kid, because he's like, I don't know, maybe like I'm comparing him to like early Shane McMahon almost, but like Shane actually couldn't wrestle. Brian James could, and he had to make himself look a bit more like he was faking it until he made it, sort of thing. And I thought, I thought this was an excellent match, by the way. I thought this was excellent. By the end, the Road Dogg just can't help revealing that he's actually got a bit about him. And they just end up having this pretty amazing, like, he hits him with a frigging tiger bomb at one point, and you're like, well, you've got something about you here. Like, catches him with it, I think. And you just, and then obviously, I won't. I won't step on your dick for the finish, but the two of them are just going 100 miles an hour, trying to top Brett Hakushi for best opener from the last month. But certainly the idea on paper is, as you say, the Road Dogg starts at a guy that might not have it, but then you kind of, as a fan, kind of have to begrudgingly respect him as the match goes on. And that's obviously important because it should have led to his babyface turn.
It's funny because I think it's a little from column A, a little from column B, because that's certainly the work. But it's also true that Sean Waltman is a much better wrestler than Brian James is. So it's almost like It's like the current the Solo Sikoa's current role is you're a bit crap, mate. It's real perfect. Yeah. The role I was born to play. You're a pretender. Yep, that sounds great. Like there's something to that, isn't there? I know. But better wrestlers than that, I've got that over the years. I think Jimmy Rave kind of started like that in classic ROH, and then he actually became good. But yeah, I think that there's an element of that to it. And like I think because of that, because he's the manager and because he's going into this night not really taken particularly seriously, because like we said that In Your House 1, it's the handicap match, which is billed as kind of his first match. He's in here and they have to start it hot. They have to start it with Waltman jumping in the aisle to make the fans kind of go with it. In a lot of ways, he's the perfect opponent here, isn't he? Because if someone is going to put him over, he's got credibility and fan support, but he's still... Yeah, he's called the 1-2-3 kid for a reason. He was a jobber and he's, moved his way up the card, but he's still, the smaller guy who's fighting from underneath, constantly here as well. But they do a great job of threading those two things and just having a really good match. And a lot of that is Waltman, a lot of that is 1-2-3 kids, his crazy flying offense to the outside that he throws in there. And like it is, the work rate elements of it, or at least what would have been called that back then, the moves that are in this match with a Z are probably Sean Waltman ideas, aren't they? Like, I'll go for a runner and you do a sit-out powerbomb. Like, to be honest, I don't know whether it's a work that Roddy just looks exhausted. Like, he doesn't even know what to do. He's like, I guess I'll pin him. Like, it's just like, fuck, I'm working here. And the match, in a way... I don't know whether it felt to me like looking at it like maybe the ref was rushing them along towards the end, but it kind of felt like we've got all these big ideas and we've got to get them all in. It's almost like it is very much a get our shit in type of match. So a lot of like the big spots towards the end do fly at you like very quickly, but they absolutely tell a story within that. They do tell a story of like Roddy proving themselves off screen. You're also telling the story because everything on this show is about Jeff. You've got Jeff in his locker room with the world's tiniest telly, refusing to watch it because he's getting ready for his match. And it's not so much that he doesn't look at the telly. He literally, I mean, does he know the camera's on him? I'm not sure. That's never really been explained. He literally does like a hand wave of the telly because he doesn't care that Roddy's in there because he's getting ready for his big match. But you're also simultaneously telling that story, aren't you? That's going to be the story of the night, that Jeff doesn't care as well. It manages to achieve all of those different things.
That's it. They're letting the roadie have the night of his life, and Jeff Jarrett's character doesn't give a toss like that. You can totally. Yeah,
worked in the black and white telly my mum and dad gave me when I was a kid for the spare room. It's good. I guess that's just 1995, but Jesus Christ.
Did you have one of the ones where you had to, like, my first ever bedroom telly didn't have a remote, so I had to go and actually get up. Like it was a tuner button, so I had to like wind the tuner on to channel 3 or channel 4. There was absolutely no way they were going to catch me watching something I wasn't allowed to because I wouldn't have been able to tune it away fast enough. So yeah.
Oh, I was going to say that then I realised how much I dated myself for our young listeners when I said I had a black and white telly. That wasn't normal. It was just, there was a hand-me-down in the family, and it was like, we got the spare telly. Richard can have it in his room. It was a glorious thing to have a telly in your room, even if it was black and white. But literally my one was like, the aerial wasn't great, so to pick up channel 4 properly, you had to like attach like a hanger to it to make that work. We didn't live in poverty, honestly. Just back then, parents didn't spend that much money on the kids. It was like, fuck him, we'll keep the good telly downstairs. He doesn't need a telly in his bedroom. What's he doing? You'd take these little small mercies,
And when the lines would start coming down, smashing the top of the telly actually worked, didn't it? You gave it a bang and it did actually fix this somehow. It was like, oh yeah, that's actually fixed it.
Because all our dads think that'll fix everything. Oh, the computer's broke, bang. Like, it's not going to work, mate. It's not the same thing. Totally.
And look, we've danced around this long enough, Benno. The reason Jeff should have been watching this match is because when the roadie hits a motherfucking desperation pile driver from the top on the 1-2-3 kid coming back from a broken neck, you were like, Well, so this guy that is a manager that finishes the match, by the way, and then in the gimmick goes and does like a sound check with this 1, 2, 1, 2. Is Jeff's ready? Has just revealed that in his arsenal, he's got one of the best kill shots in the entire company. Unbelievable finish.
Only Waltman's taken that as well. I wonder whether it's his idea or it's because him and Billy, that finish was it was a pile driver, but it was the other way around, wasn't it? It was Road Dogg off the top to Billy, like hitting the pile driver they'd eventually do. So maybe it is something in his brain, but it is unbelievable. It's a proper indie finish. It's crazy. He can barely do it because he does it like back. If anyone hasn't watched it, he does it backwards, kind of more off the second than the top, I'd say, and like he almost breaks his own fall with one of his legs because he's like, shit, I'm gonna kill him. I better not kill him. Like people seem to like this lad backstage. I better be careful with our Shawn. But like it's a great finish. It's a proper killer finish, and it's good for 1, 2, 3 Kid who can take the loss. You know, it's fine. You know, he's the 1, 2, 3 Kid. He'll be turning heel eventually, and he's the underdog babyface anyway. But at least it gives him that fucking hell. It took that to kill him. Fair enough. If you're gonna put a statement win out, it's a proper, both in the way it looks and in reality, it's an exclamation point finish, isn't it? It's proper, like it sticks in your brain. It's
I couldn't get over like when so it was on the pre-show where Todd mentioned it. They showed the clip, which was in a match against Jarrett and Roddy, because this is the Jeff show, where the kid's neck they said a broken neck. They might have been exaggerating, but it was obviously badly damaged, and it was one of like 3 times in his career, wasn't it, where he went down with a serious neck injury. But such was the time and such was the calendar and the money and everything. That was in like April, and he was back here in July, like shaking it off, basically. Wrestlers now go 2 months without wrestling just because of the schedule. Like MJF could go 2 months between matches. CM Punk could go 2 months between matches. That was the time Shawn Waltman took off with a broken neck, and he was the litmus test guy, wasn't he? They needed him back to find out who their good wrestlers were. So back to work you go.
Massively important cog in the machine, but very much that. Yeah, he is the bumping cog in the machine. But yeah, like I say, Roddy goes over it extremely strongly, and again a match that, like, not just doing a bit, I was very much into, and surprised at how much I was into when I looked at the card. Thought, that won't match last month. Really good little match, and very for the time, especially because they're doing things that you don't really necessarily. It is literally that you say, that observer thing of Waltman and Jerry Lynn and those lads. They're doing things you won't see on TV. Here you are seeing it on TV / a pay-per-view. But yeah, I love, like you noted there, I love the fact that after Roddy wins, he's I don't think I knew as a kid what a roadie actually was, but thankfully they explained it to you here as he does a sound check and checks the band, which is great because he's got to, because no matter how important his match is, as you said there, it's more important that Jeff's got the live show later on. So yeah, great bit of business there.
Yeah, good stuff.
Well, from there we have a little backstage promo with the $1 Million Jobbers, with Sid. Sid's in there with, you know, all the goobers stood behind them, but not enough. That's not enough. DiBiase gets to speak, but Tatanka gets to cut a promo, and not even that. That's not the worst thing. Kama gets to cut a little promo. So Sid stood there. Just let him talk. Sid will be fine. It'll be good, whether it's good or bad. It'll be entertaining. Can't state it enough, and I think it'll be a recurring theme of these shows. Can't stand this stable. Like, Sid would be better off on his own.
Such a group, and again, this is an adult take, not a young me one. Losers, man, such losers. Like, the stats bear it out. The matches were never good, and again, this is definitely something I found weird when I was younger. Sid booked as the coward, which is the central thread, and that's why we've got 15 lumberjacks on each side, because Sid can't run away, but DiBiase spins it as no, it's Diesel, in fact, that can't escape now that Sid's got him trapped, and as a heel should do. But between, like, running away from Diesel and having to hang around with these dickheads, like, it's not good booking a Sid. If you contrast this to where we're going to be with Sid in 12 months, like, it's no wonder by the time January came around, softball came calling again, because this character is not taken care of, is it? Not really.
No, not at all. Like I say, you let a tanker talk. Like, that's already you're onto a loser. It's, Yeah, it's bizarre. Just a gang of geeks, and the geek row continues as we go to the babyface locker room on the back of this as our boy Barry is back there backstage with like I noted earlier with Diesel and Shawn in the show t-shirts. The only time all night you'll see them wearing them conspicuously. Yeah. Obviously, somebody has to hold them down. Go, come on, lads, wear the t-shirts, will you? When they have Aldo Montoya and a few other jobbers stood behind them as well for the comparative promo.
They dig him in the back and they take the piss out of his hair. I was just watching it thinking, like, there can't be many other than like that SmackDown run where it was like Undertaker, Bob Holly, Eddie Guerrero, and like Kurt Angle just torturing the Miz. There can't have been a worse time to be a Barry Dzinski than this. Like, oh man, it just screamed bullying, didn't it? This whole segment.
Honestly, our noble healer, he still continues to show up for work. So, yeah, God bless him. There's t-shirts to sell. But yeah, we go from there into the next match, which, as we mentioned, is the continued push of King Mabel, as King Mabel and Samo still tagging at times here as men on a mission take on. And there's a theme in this show. All the wrestlers have got mates. I like that about this period. Razor Ramon and Savio Vega. But yeah, we've talked Shoot King Mabel, and this is obviously the continuation of this project with a surprising result in this match. But had you bought that Razor and Savio were best mates at this point, that they used to hang around the bars and in different parts of Central America, knocking around on the mean streets? They've got a little bit more chemistry, I'd say, than Diesel and Bama.
Yeah, 100%. We talked about this on the In Your House 1 review. That little detail about how I've fought against him and it's certainly better to fight with him. I was like, yeah, that's just, that is theatre of the mind. That's Razor and Savio hitting the bars together. I liked as well. Obviously, at the moment, you can see this, by the way. There's on the pre-show, I don't remember what story it was for, but I think it might be the $1 Million Corporate. Anyway, there's a heel miscommunication spot where somebody pulls the leg on the floor and ultimately they use it again in the Shawn, Jarrett and Roddy stuff later on. Here, Razor pulls the rib tape off, having faked his injury in the same way Brett did in Your House 1. So they've got like a few little tricks they quite like and they'll just use them. Over and kind of think, the fan.
They're on pay-per-view now, lads. We can't just do the same things. It can't, can't it?
Yeah.
Can't just repeat these ideas, lads.
They're just repeating the spots from like that 1 month earlier. It's Ray's like, my ribs are taped, and then he throws the wrap at Mo's head, doesn't he? Like his rib there. He's like, I'm all better, that kind of thing. So
yeah, it's a good little point in there as well. And obviously, Savio takes a lot of the heat in this match. It's not really up to much, is it? It's clear in the seams what they're doing here. And to be fair to Razor, and it's probably because it's setting someone up for his mate Diesel. He does the job clean as a sheet, pretty much for Mabel here with the big slam. It's a very, very decisive win, and obviously a statement of intent that he's obviously, and they do more of it later on in the Lumberjack match. That Mabel, whether we want it or not, is coming for Diesel.
Yeah, you can't fault the conviction, but you can't praise the performance, I think, is the reality of the Mabel push. And it's the story of the pushing it. Like, there is just no heat when men on a mission are on offense. Not a thing. Like, Razor can't generate anything from the audience when he's selling for them. Savio just takes the beating for the most part. Like people come up for Mabel going to the top because it's Mabel going to the, or trying to get up to the top rope at least. They like Mo. Like, Mo misses a moonsault and that kind of comes out of nowhere, and he gets up for Razor doing the sack of shit. He moves around a bit. He bumps well, the WWF bump and feed comeback. Mo has got a pretty good one in him as a heel for Razor, so that's something.
He's got to make that movement, hasn't he? Because Mabel's not gonna. Yeah. He's got to create the movement around him, literally.
That's it. The one note I've got from this match, because a lot of it was stalling and selling and letting Mabel get his wind and things like that. Did you spot the trademark bit of WWE cynicism about taking a record away from somebody that's no longer with the company? Because there was a great one in this match. So,
what was
Savio Vega, obviously, were fresh off the King of the Ring, right? And as we both know, he had to wrestle IRS earlier in the night just to even qualify for the King of the Ring. And on commentary, they're hitting it. Savio wrestled 4 times in one night. That's a WWF record, which is true, but it's a joint record with Randy Savage at WrestleMania 4. And that's not getting a mention. And that got me thinking. I was like, Randy Savage only left in November, and they've taken the first opportunity to let a guy wrestle 4 times in a night, just like Ric Flair lost his Rumble record to Bob Backlund the next year, just like Randy Orton took Brock Lesnar's age record months after he left. Is it that wild to speculate that Savio Vega got the King of the Ring push just so somebody on the current roster could take Randy Savage's record away?
This company, 100%. That's the thought through thing. Like that bet. It's like if Orton ever leaves at some point on bad terms, goes to AEW, it'll be like, right, we need like somebody literally fresh out the womb now to take that record again. Like we need to keep going, just keep going younger and younger and younger until you saw. That's absolutely within their wheelhouse. They would do that.
Yeah. I thought so. It stuck out to me. I was like, oh, well, there goes Randy Savage's world title win at WrestleMania 4, I guess, because Savio lost the King of the Ring.
Oh, well, there we go. We had again. The match is very much there to get our boy Mabel over, and not much after that. But yeah, post the match, we get a fair amount of waiting around. I feel like we get a bit of an irritated Vince here. I don't know if you were feeling that in watching the scenes that come next. As Todd Pettingill is playing with some of the equipment on stage, and Vince just seems annoyed by him. He's like getting them to play like tunes, and he's singing them out. You can just tell Vince, come on lads, let's move on. Let's get to the performance here. We go from there into we have apparently one of the Lumberjacks has been bought. Is the scoop that's out there with the babyface Lumberjacks back there. Bam Bam Bigelow is one of the many suspects in here. You got Billy Gunn backstage there, who's strangely got a country accent. Speaking of Nashville, as he's denying that it's him that has been bought out by the $1 Million Man, Adam Bomb. Basically, who's who of Man Mountain Rock is in there stumbling over his lines as well. They're trying to create some strife here in the backstage segment, as we do seem to be buying some time before the big performance.
Yeah, this I was trying to remember while I was watching the show if there was even was anything implied in the match that you could read from any of the baby faces that were ultimately going to turn heel. It was obviously just a heel red herring to try and like create some dissension in the ranks, because it's such a like WWF. I'm not saying
line. Get that like who the heel is.
If you look at these two rosters, and the Lumberjacks is as good a way as doing it as any, it's such a babyface heavy promotion, isn't it, at this point? Like they've got nothing on that heel side really, so you might as well try and tease that a babyface might be jumping, because there's just, it's not that anyone's making money, but you've got so many over good guys compared to heels to work for them to work against. The disparity was really laid bare, I think. Yeah.
Massively. We go from there into the big performance. Like I say, much ado, much building up. Again, young me didn't clock it. Rhodey does the big introduction. He's got those pipes. I almost feel like this is such a great story. They're too subtle with it. Like if they were just more on the nose with like very clearly Jeff isn't the singer. It's actually Rhodey. But again, as an adult, I kind of appreciate that they've got him out there. They get him to do a bit of a speaking bit that might make you go, "Oh, hang on, that sounds a bit like what I'm about to hear." But yeah, they give it the big build up. He's got the hit single that's out right now. Does our Jeff? He comes out and does a little bit, runs down his enemies and all of the haters. It's basically like a rap diss, Jeff, before he does the song. But I'll let you take it away, mate, because I think this is your main event in this show. I love as well that it's separate to the match. Like Jeff gets to come out again later for the show match. It's not his introduction. It's completely own separate thing. And Jeff takes the time while he's on stage to address his enemies and get to the big song.
Mate, it's not my main event on this show. It's my main event in this podcast. I'm on the beach after this.
That's it.
This is right. Like, so Jarrett's gloating and he does his strut and he keeps the wrestling side of it. But like, you're right. If you're watching this as an adult, you can fully appreciate just how like locked in everybody is. If this story had the conclusion it was supposed to have, Jeff Jarrett is trying to perpetrate a fraud. So how would you do that? You be convincing. You have Rhodey come on, and then you like, if you look when he comes on after the song, he's only just been kind of behind the set, and you want to think that they would have had a camera on him and that would have like revealed, when they did the Double J thing a year later, they didn't really use the footage because they didn't want to include Jeff very much. But in a world where this is the actual, I bet there was a camera on the Rhodey singing into a microphone just off, Like you can see the White House or something.
Was. WB Vault sorted like, out. Come on, lads.
Get on it.
Let's go.
Like probably like the roadie singing, but like looking up at the stage and like kind of cursing Jeff with his eyes a little bit as Jeff gets in all the glory. Jeff puts his hand, not even obscure in his mouth, but just enough that if he needs to cover a little flub, he can do, as the Milli Vanilli thing, the miming thing. But here's the thing, and we're going to say this for the second In Your House in a row, right? Both of these pay-per-views have had gimmicks. First one was giving away a house. Second one was Jeff singing. It's brilliant again. Like it is. This couldn't have gone any better. Like it looks great. It sounds great. It looks and feels legitimate. This doesn't feel like we've just talked about William Shatner on our Housekeeping episode the last time around. It doesn't feel like an alien has come to Planet Wrestling. Like it actually looks like somebody singing on a stage as a musician would. It's wrestling trying to do something that isn't wrestling. And just like giving away the house, I think objectively, it's one of the best you'll ever see. Like, especially when you know what the payoff was supposed to be. This is good on its own terms. If you imagine how the story should have played out, it's like all-timer heel heat stuff. For as trivial as like faking that you're a good singer, like what does that really mean in the grand scheme of things? Not a lot. But this is Jeff Jarrett's biggest and most arrogant and most grandiose night ever, and he is literally stealing a living because somebody's doing the work for him. If this plays out as it was supposed to, they would put this one up there as like all-timer breakup storylines. This would be in the barbershop conversation. This would be in the Undertaker and Kane, whatever the things that people like remember and fantasy book and all of that, because the presentation of this is best in class. Benno, there is a reason why these fucking initials have been the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment, and it's because of musical performances like this. Like 5-star bullshit. This is 5-star bullshit.
It's so you're saying to me that if the story had been played through to its natural conclusion, we'd be talking about, you know, the Road Dogg versus The Rock, or maybe Road Dogg versus Steve Austin. Austin could have been the heel that works with him. Maybe we could have gone there. Could have been a whole different world, couldn't it? Different ball game.
Jeff invented manna in this performance before The Rock thought it into existence.
It's brilliant. It's really good, and the backbone of it, like you say, all of the. Like I say, it's actually a subtly told, well-told story. Like you say, the fact that Jeff's faking it is one thing, but the fact that it's the poor roadie, like the simp for an absolute bastard who's like the sidekick of this heel that you're supposed to hate, the sympathy there that he's the actual talent. It's the Milli Vanilli story, isn't it? It's he's like you say, he's backstage with a little microphone. He just wishes it could be him. It's obviously it's shit when he's the only one left in the company. It's just him. And he's just this weird country singer now called Jesse James. That's 2 J's. They count. That'll work. And we've got fucking Honky Tonk Man knocking around with Billy Gunn. Not a great period for either of those two lads. But yeah, you connect the tissue and you do it as a story. It is really well done. And like, yeah, even I think again, another backbone of it is, like we said earlier, that the song is good. Like it is. And maybe it's just wrestling and we're all Jim Johnston pilled, but like, the fact that the big man is out there making this work, the fact that yes, Jeff is miming, but you've got the live like Nashville type singers again. I said earlier, picturing Nashville in my head as a young man. I picture bars with women like that, you know, singing along in the background, like while somebody sings the blues. It's a rousing performance. That's not a performance, to the point where it's like clearly it's there for heel heat, and it's not like it gets a mega pop at the end of it, but the polite applause tells you something. Like people are like, yeah, I'm supposed to hate this, but it's actually all right. And then when Pettingill goes into the crowd and he's getting like, you know, people's responses to it, they're basically like, yeah, you know, it was actually quite good. That it was all right, wasn't it? It wasn't terrible. Quite enjoyed that. It was like a good little gig within a wrestling show. It even works like, on that level.
Wrestling. This was 1995, which I know by today's standards feels ancient, right? Because we are older than we'd like to admit we are now. But this wasn't 1965. There was less kayfabe than ever, right? More and more, like, people were on the up and up. The Observer was out there if you wanted to find it. Power Slam was in WH Smith's over here. If you wanted to even know the words heel and babyface, you were starting to get access to those sort of things. Is this not an example of a crowd being worked? Because you're right, the polite applause may as well be a huge pop or a big, like massive heat, because you almost can't believe that you've got to pay begrudging respect to this dickhead. Like that's the work. That is the work. Is like, I hate him, and that was good. And what do I do about this? Like
Vince is doing that on commentary. Like, that's what he's being like. Yeah. Oh yeah, I suppose it was all right. And Lawler's like, admit it, you liked it because he did.
It's just they do a thing. I think just before the Todd in the crowd, there's a SummerSlam advert, isn't there? Where like Diesel's on the road to SummerSlam, whatever, and then Vince drops the news, and like you would brag about this in '95 especially, they've sold 11,000 tickets for SummerSlam, right? And this again speaks to this point where they had the big house in them every now and then, or respectable house in them every now and then, even if like business was badly down. I am not suggesting that like Jeff Jarrett was going to turn the territory around. I really don't want this to get twisted. But what I am saying is, even at rock bottom for WWF, like there is a level of effort and detail put into certain characters that mean something. I've always I can't remember if I read this and stole it or just thought about it and then wrote it down once, like as a sort of aspiring writer and then in this job. But this little sort of like idiom that I always stick with is that like gimmicks sell t-shirts, characters sell tickets. Like Jeff Jarrett is a country musician in the same way Duke Drosy is a bin man, but Jeff Jarrett is a bastard. Like the singing, all of this is not about a singer. It's about a piece of shit. The character will sell a ticket while the gimmick might flog a few t-shirts. And that difference, so often WWF got it wrong. That Vince McMahon got that wrong in this era over and over again. Diesel is not a human truck. The man is not a lorry. The man is a cool guy that like has, it'd be class. He has the strength of an 18-wheeler, and his gear looks a bit like a car, and his name is Petrol. It's not that he's a human truck, but like every now and then there'd be a bit like Skip is like a fitness guru. He's not like, and the fact that he could never get that distinction right is ultimately why it took them so long. Like Steve Austin talking about like, that's not cold, that's stone cold. It's like, that's not what this character is. He's a nasty piece of work. But Jeff Jarrett is one that they are getting absolutely bob on. I'm talking now, and I'll remain devastated that this never got the payoff it deserved. What a phenomenal bit of business this all was.
Just hurts because that's it. And it's like to your point, like if Jeff Jarrett, the character, had this song, what would he do? He'd ram it down your throat. It would be a constant reminder that he's this big star and that you can buy his song and that he knows all these like celebrities in Nashville. It's perfectly cast and perfectly performed by both of them. It really is. It really is good. If you haven't, again, people know the song. People have seen the terrible. Unfortunately, don't do what I did. Go on YouTube when you search for it, and it comes up with the Hall of Fame rendition with Rhodey and Jeff. And because Jeff never sang it, Jeff doesn't actually know the words. Jeff's struggling, and Rhodey's trying to carry him, and then it's a room full of children and young wrestlers who are just like, what are they doing? They don't even get the reference. What's going on? And they're just all polite. That's where you get real polite applause, because like, oh right, they're doing a bit of a karaoke, are they? At least Bruce Pritchard gets to sing a couple of lines, but Jesus, that footage is also out there as well. This footage, this performance is what you want to see. This is the peak of this story, and it's just it is just sad that it doesn't come out the other side, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's just a total classic. I'll get away now. Thank you very much. It's been lovely to go on this trip with you.
Is Matty in the background to come in and do In Your House 3? Might be. We'll see.
Not when he sees that we've got to do more Bam Bam Bigelow next.
That's when we pull in the reserves to help us. But absolutely, again, I actually can't believe as a kid though I hadn't figured it out. Like it was too intelligent for my young brain to figure out that it's Rhodey out there. But well. But yeah, unless you've got more on that, mate, we do have more Jeff later, so we can sing more as praises as we go. Like I mentioned, Todd talks to some of the fans. There's some negative reviews, but mostly it's that begrudging respect that you get in there. Like you mentioned, there's a commercial for SummerSlam '95 in there, and sorry, mate, you signed up for Jeff Talk when you fancied doing this podcast, but what you also signed up for, I'm afraid, is Bam Bam Bigelow versus Henry O. Godwin. Because if you don't get it, mate, he's a farmer and he farms pigs. So his initials, like Isaac Yankem, it's I Yankem. Isn't that hilarious? It's HOG. It's Henry O. Godwin, the evil hog farmer in full heel mode. Did you? First question, actually, before we get into the match. Did you know what slop was? I was so confused as a kid. What's slop? Is that just a thing Americans know, that all farmers have slop for their pigs? To me, it just like, when you go to the Tesco, not a good Tesco, like a little Tesco, the Tesco Express, and you fancy a meal deal, but it's the end of the day, and they got the yellow stickers out. When you get one of those salads that's just, you look at it and you go, I'd buy that for 5p, but it's a bit brown. That's what slop look like in this show. It's literally, I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be, but it's just a big bucket of salad. What am I looking at? What is it? It's just, I guess Vince had been pilled by it at some point, or he'd seen a dirty farmer with some pig slop at some point. Who knows how it came to be, but what a fucking weird thing.
I know, man. I'll tell you what slop is. It's Henry Godwin versus Bam Bam Bigelow, mate. But really they should have put that match in the bucket. No, I'm exactly the same. I took it that it's all right, it's what the pigs eat, but that's why sometimes it's wet and sometimes it's dry, because it is just whatever you've got left in your dinner and your crops. I don't know.
Why is he getting around then? How's he getting around?
And again,
how's he getting
illustrate my point? To illustrate my point, right? This is it. Jeff Jarrett, yes, he's a singer, but that's not what he is. He's a bad person, abusing his roadie and just not being nice to the people around him. Henry Godwin is a pig farmer. It's not it's not a character trait. It's not sort of well, because I'm a pig farmer, I don't know. Because I'm a pig farmer, I'm going to treat the WWF superstars as pigs. Well, that doesn't work, because you look after your pigs. Yeah. There's no attempt to square that away.
You're the hog, surely.
And you're the hog, and you stink. That's what we've been led to believe, is that you smell as bad as the pigs. So you've come from your farm without having a wash. I think so that Vince McMahon can make Bill Clinton jokes. That feels like there's an element of that. This match is dire, isn't it? This is not doing the Bama any favors, is it? Because this is dead crowd, zero heat, rest hold city. It's bleak, this one. Bam Bam Bigelow. They used to talk about King Kong Bundy working the cage against Hogan at WrestleMania 2 and then working the comedy match with the little people at WrestleMania 3. Mm-hmm. This is a month after the King of the Ring main event. 1 month after it, and this is what he's doing.
That's probably 6 years. Oh, it's ridiculous, and the whole, like I say, evil hog farm thing doesn't help. But the fact that it's two of them in there, who, as much as I had to go with Bammer earlier, you put him in there with a smaller lad or somebody who can work around them, create that movement. It is a different kettle of fish. You've just got two of the same, really, aired against each other. Two lads who are both, I suppose, more comfortable as heels, just having a slow pod match, and Bammer has to be the face fighting from underneath, as if anyone's going to get behind him in the first place. And on top of that, you say that about the gimmick, it's the get up too, because I'll fast forward to the finish because there's not much more to say about this match, but it's basically a shit knee drop. It's the finish. Or he's selling his knee, isn't he, in the match? And you end up having Henry O'Godwin having to roll around in his silly overalls, holding his owie, holding his hurt knee to sell at the end. It just looks ridiculous. It's just impractical. And then he has to get his slot bucket and fuck off backstage. It's just, why does this exist?
This is it, right? A tale of two WWFs, because Bam Bam Bigelow gets what is effectively a banana skin win of a heel that they're ultimately going to push. This is the start of something for Henry Godwin pretty much from here, as a kind of a favors guy for the $1 million corporation that ultimately will lead to a babyface turn. But you've got Bam Bam Bigelow getting this type of win right at when the match finishes, it cuts to Bob Backlund campaigning to be president in the pitch black. They've not like got a spotlight on him or anything. And you've just seen this like amazing production of the Jeff Jarrett singing and that character and that story. And then this is in direct contrast. You sort of, it's not a stable world, this company, is it? Because you're potentially 5 minutes away from something really great, a Brett match, a Shawn match, like the thing we're going to talk about next. But you're also 5 minutes away from Henry Godwinn and Bam Bam Bigelow, just absolutely dogging it. It's impossible to like nail down a single identity. And that is the identity of the new generation, realistically. A bit of everything, a bit of slop. Yeah.
For as much as we want to wax lyrical about what we're about to wax lyrical about, there is also the reality of this is what they're throwing out in front of you as well. But yeah, that's a match that exists. Mercifully, at least only 5 minutes. At least we've got that. But yeah, we go from there to speaking of like you say, Vincent is Clinton obsession. We have Bob Backlund talking to fans, campaigning. We are told in the stands there. Always thought that was shit. Never was a Bob Backlund guy, and even in my young fandom. And yet we also have a Shawn promo here, as well as Pettingill talks to Shawn, who is before his match suspiciously quite sweaty, and his eyes are a little bit in that maybe that place that Shawn Michaels' eyes go to a bit here. Any notes from the promo or Bob Backlund, if you've got anything there?
I am riding a high the second I see that white and gold gear, like riding a high. I am like, I think I've said it before. I do consider myself a Brett guy, gun to head, right? But 1995, 1996 Shawn Michaels might be, when I think about it, my wrestling comfort food. I just want to be there and stay there and be grateful that I'm not in the same room as him. Because
that's a big part of it, yeah.
The negative energy like spews out of his every pore, and yet I am completely captivated by his every move. Like the look of him. We're going to get to the match in a second. I got a lot of thoughts, as I'm sure you will too.
Oh, absolutely.
I think 99. I think that shot when you see Shawn backstage with Todd, I think that's one of my like wrestling nirvanas. Genuinely, I was like, well. I'm where I should be right now, looking at him looking like that.
I'm so glad you said that, because it's like, for me, and I mentioned it earlier, like there is something about stubbly being a babyface Shawn Michaels. There's an energy to it. Like when he comes out here, you know, without jumping ahead, like he changes, the room changes. Like they really have captured something here. It's like, it's easy to wreck on it and look back and go, there's Vince going with, Shawn's got in his ear, he's going with his favourite over Brett, poor Brett. Will be the narrative that you will hear out there. Listen to the arenas, listen to the crowds. Yes, it is driven by women. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it's like he is this ball of energy in this company, this shining light. Like we mentioned the torch earlier, like the last column in the torch that comes out this week is literally Wade Keller writing like a love letter to Shawn Michaels, surprisingly, being like, get the belt off Diesel, get it off Shawn. Like he's got his finger on the pulse, he's current, which is crazy now when you look at what an old man he is. He's like a different human being these days. But I guess he's got his finger on the pulse in a way in NXT. Yeah. But like, you know, Wade is going for bat for him because he is hot in this period and he is the current thing. Like, yeah, there's so much I love about him. It's like, when you came to me with the idea of, you know, we were going back and forth, podcast ideas, In Your House came up, got this, you know, this absolute love for this period for In Your House, but I don't think I'd just fully put in my head the timeline of this, because this is my Bretro from here on out, mate. This is, like, from here, the Shawn Michaels babyface experiment is started up and is well and proper going. And we're gonna get to ride that entire thing. I'm gonna get, like you said, to feel all those feelings when I see Shawn in that get-up, when I see babyface Shawn coming out and mucking it up with the fans. Like, oh, I got goosebumps watching that promo. And obviously when we get to the match, it was like, oh, this is the Shawn I remember and love, possibly even more so than his 1996. What in it? It's Shawn.
He does things like, you know how Jim Ross would always tell like any wrestler, but especially the bad ones, to maximize their minutes, because you're going to get what you're going to get, and that's the only time you've got out there to sell yourself. Shawn Michaels is one of the few people in this era that doesn't even need to do that, because he's so head and shoulders above almost everybody else. and he maximizes his seconds. Like everything he does out there is so intrinsically Shawn Michaels. I remember, I think it was the video package they put together for Montreal. It's a really good one, a Bret and Shawn video package. And it's late 97, so business is turning for WWF. And there's a certain sort of symbolism about how Bret and Shawn have been the ones to kind of keep the train on the tracks through ultimately they're responsible for it not drawing, but they're also the ones that were keeping the quality bar high when nobody else could. And you can feel it in their voices, both as heels by this point. But Shawn, even as a heel, he has to get across, when I am out there, I will give you everything I've got, every drop of sweat, every ounce. I will do it to be the man, to be the best. The showstopper is not a nickname. It is who I am, the icon that can still go. And he is building that character and legacy in stuff like this, where he just, I wouldn't say he breaks the fourth wall, but it's like there was a bunch of unwritten rules, and Shawn Michaels just happened to be the one to spot, you can just do that. And people highlight the TV squashes of how he would beat jobbers while doing a funny pose, or standing on the back, or going and sitting in the front row. And you can tell he's asked a production assistant, can we move those people so that I can jump over the rail and sit with the fans? Yeah, that was always there. And it was as if Shawn had unlocked a cheat code that had him break these invisible walls. And he does it in the ring and in his movement. And it's I'm picturing him slapping Jim Cornette on his arse with his tennis racket. I'm picturing the arm round him. Benno, man, when he skins the cat into the Jeff Jarrett strut in this match, I need a private moment alone with that. He is, Bret Hart is the best wrestler probably ever for how real he made a predetermined thing look. Shawn Michaels in this match and in certain other examples that and I cannot wait to review, is simply operating on a different level. If I had to make a contemporary comparison, I would go to about sort of 2017 Kenny Omega versus a Bryan Danielson. Bryan Danielson operates as the best of his kind within the rules of what we're used to. And then Kenny Omega sort of started coloring outside the lines, and you're like, oh, you just can. Shawn Michaels was doing the 90s version of that.
You've nailed so much about what my thoughts are of this match, but in different words than the way.
Sorry, yeah, because we could go hours on this.
Perfect, because for me, you watch this match, it's the wrestling match. When I did my wrestling training, I was taught how to do. You get taught the match starts with a bit of establishment between who's the baby and who's the heel. The yay boo type stuff that they do early in this match. Then you get your babyface shine, which is what does broadly happen in this match. Then you get your heat, you get your hope spots, you get your babyface comeback, and then you get your finish. And it's really basic. I mean, it sounds like that's not even just the wrestling thing. A lot of films go through that description. That's what they like, because that's basic storytelling. Heat, comeback, finish. That's a lot of film storyboarding that you'll get out there as well. But what you've just nailed there is absolutely true of this match. It's the thing Shawn does in the middle that makes him so different from everybody else. And I'm with you. Bret might be the better in wrestling. It's close. It's not 1 in 10. It's 1 in 2. No. But Shawn was always my favorite, and it's for the exact reasons you mentioned there. It's we've got to do the opening establishment bit or the opening shine bit for the babyface. Some wrestlers, lazy wrestlers out there, it's a few moves, you get cut off, that's it. That's not Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is out there going back and forth. They're doing the back and forth over the arm drags in the early point of this. Jeff gets some heat, Shawn gets some cheers. Then we go to the Shawn clothesline, and the skin the cat is in there, and he hits his pose. And like you said, I'm going wild at home at 40 years old, and he's getting me into that. But it's the swinging momentum, because then Jeff is back on top because Shawn follows Jeff out to the outside, and Jeff eventually gets the cutoff. But then Shawn comes back again, and it's still the same basic thing, but it's not basic, it's complex, and it's back and forth, and you're still telling that story of this is the opening portion of the match where Shawn is on top, but it's the smoke and mirrors of putting Jeff on top and then Shawn on top, and it's that back and forth that makes it feel like a competitive match is what really, really makes this work. And it's just Jeff's there with him too as well. But this is Shawn. This is Shawn's brain working overtime, and you're absolutely right. Like, okay, what can the big cutoff be in this match? It might seem it's probably a bit daft, the idea that he does it, but basically Shawn takes a backdrop to the floor. Like, that's
oh my god,
that's Kenny Omega, isn't it? That's where you said Kenny Omega. Then that reminded me of that then, because after all these like almost not real cut-offs that should have taken place already if you're doing your formulaic match, the actual real one is when it finally comes to that, and it's all built to that crescendo, and that's just stuff people weren't doing in this period because they couldn't do it, and Shawn could.
That bump, and I think what's cool about this match is that you can, as you say, you can watch it very much in its own context, because they don't, like, wrestling is still in 1995. American wrestling especially is in 1995. There is only so much that wrestlers in general will do, because a lot of like worlds haven't yet been explored, I guess. So this, in one sense, does feel like a match in its own time. But then because Shawn does a bump like that one over the post, you gasp, because you're simply not expecting something that looks like that in this period. Like, we've already put him over for the thing. I really don't want this to go without mention either. Jeff Jarrett is one, in my opinion, one of the most underrated pro wrestlers ever, because there aren't many eras of Jeff Jarrett where he is not holding up his end of the bargain. We did the Brett match on Housekeeping. Same again here. That man, one of the reasons why he gets hired is for better and worse, because if you give him the book, he's going to win titles with it. But for better and worse, he can have liquid chemistry with so many different kinds of wrestlers. There is a point at the start of this match, as you said, where like, right, there's a million different ways to do the heat and the shine, but how are we going to do this? They're trading who can be the most arrogant, because that's the type of babyface Shawn Michaels is. So that allows Jeff to try and like out arrogant Shawn Michaels. And you can't do that with you couldn't do that with a Bret Hart, because that's not the type of babyface Bret is. You couldn't do that with a Razor Ramon, because Razor Ramon is a different type of babyface. But Jeff Jarrett is one of, like, you talk about the 1-2-3 kid as a utility player. Someone like a Chris Candido was always a safe pair of hands. Jeff Jarrett should be in that conversation for me, because his chemistry with pretty much everybody and his wrestling brain, I don't think there's many on his level. And you just watch a match like this to see, like, yes, Shawn will carry Sid to his best night. Yes, Bret will like give the Bulldog his best night and things like that. Jeff Jarrett might not be the guy that will give those wrestlers their best night, but he hangs with the best ones and he elevates the bang average ones. And he is step for step with Shawn in this. You could tell Shawn in this era was almost like look at his body. He must have loved blowing up half of the wrestlers he worked with. You've seen that match with IRS where the sweat is pissing through Mike Rotunda's shirt. Jeff Jarrett does not suck wind in this match once. Again, like, his body is up to it, is like, he looks in fantastic nick. This is so quick. This match is so quick. When they come up, their comebacks look like they've been out there 10 seconds, let alone 10 minutes. The pace is just unmatched from anything else on this card. I know we're just jumping all over because we both love this match. I have been lucky enough to make a living writing lists. At one point, it was all I did was write lists, and it was a fun job doing it as well. And I never, of all the lists, of all the things I was desperate to steal people's clicks for with a stupid thumbnail or a daft title, I like to think the writing was good behind the thumbnail, but I knew what I was doing. I was looking for you to click, right? And as a result, I never got to write Michael Hamflett's 10 favorite matches, because that's not necessarily something anybody would want to click. Let me tell you, this is in there. This is categorically one of my I don't know where it sits quite. I've never given that the time that maybe I should. This is definitely one of my all-time favorite matches. You said show it in training. I've shown this to people to give them the most favorable snapshot of the new generation. Like, this is what it looked like. This was what the peak of the work could be. These were the characters. Did you not like Jesus, Shawn? Don't buy into Jesus, Shawn, because let me give you pills, Shawn, instead. Like, I think it's perfect, and wrestling is hard to get. You're hard to get perfect in wrestling. And I think, like, subjectively for me, this is a perfect match. And I just think, like, if you want a window into open and shut why I would cover this era all day long, given the choice, it's because of Jeff Jarrett versus Shawn Michaels in Your House too.
And it's that. And like I say, it's good you're covering Jeff, I'm covering Shawn. but like Jeff is absolutely as much a part of why this works so well. Why it is, I can see why you'd call it a perfect match, because it's the perfect example of that style of match, because Jeff's right there with him. Jeff is the perfect heel to go back and forth with, to grab that abdominal stretch as like in most matches that would be a rest hold, and that would be your middle chunkier match. Not here, because we've got wackiness with the roadie to do. We've got a bit of interference. Like the thing that's so genius about how well these two work together in this match is the hope spots are believable, because hope spots can be done just for the sake of it. But like one of the hope spots in this match is Jeff bumping Roddy off the apron, and you kind of think in a lot of other matches that would be, all right, that's going to lead to the finish now. Oh, yeah, the heels have been cheating, and now they met their comeuppance, and there we go. No, what it leads to is another bit of heat in the corner when Jeff cuts off Shawn again, and Roddy comes back with it's the lariat off the apron, isn't it? Like the running lariat, which should have been in No Mercy the game. They had the mechanism for that. Great little move, always like that when he did it. But it goes to that, so then you get another chapter of the match. You get like it's the flying body press reversal. That's another great hope spot for Shawn. Like it's all in there. There's that one of the greatest drop kicks I've ever seen.
Oh my god!
Off that Jeff does to Shawn. I didn't know Jeff had that in his locker. I didn't know you had those skills, Jeff. I was not familiar with your game. Is what I learned during this match. I'm like, oh my god, he almost kills Shawn Michaels. It's perfect as again, like you say, that constant motion. It's a lot of stuff, but it's not stuff for the sake of stuff. All of the stuff that happens is to swing the momentum, to do the cutoff, to make you believe that this hope spot isn't a hope spot. It's the finish. No, it's a hope spot, and it works on itself and goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's so well done. It's like, yeah, and they fit like a glove. You can tell. Yeah, I maybe didn't traditionally have Shawn and Brett probably found it hard there at the office when they work certain guys, and then they get to work Sean Waltman this week. They get to work Owen Hart this week. There's that, they're the A's, and then there's the B's. Clearly Jeff's in that group, isn't he? Like clearly it's like, I'm in there with Jeff. Jeff knows what he's doing. Jeff will keep up. Jeff will work the match. I want to work it. It's a joy.
He made a lot of political enemies because he couldn't help being Jeff Jarrett. But I think a lot of those political enemies used his work as a stick to beat him with, because it was simply easier than saying, I don't like him. He was a piece of shit to me. Steve Austin could say, it was, there's heat going back to like Memphis or whatever it was. I just didn't think his work was credible in a main event run against Austin. And it's like, I think that might be on you, that one, Steve, because I think Jeff would lose to you, but he would level up in the process to look like he belonged in that spot. He's kind of, he could minimize himself to work like a cruiserweight, just as he could level the work up to work a main event style, even if I'm not saying he was a draw as a world champion or anything, but he knew how to adjust his style to fit what he was doing. He does it now. Do you know what I mean? We're sitting here in the year of our Lord 2024, and he knows how to work a serious babyface loss to Hangman Page and then do the comedy strap match 6 weeks later. It's like a light switch to the man. His wrestling brain is like the kind of thing you dream of, and they had it here. There's a bit so they do the stuff where the ref gets distracted and Road Dogg takes Shawn's leg in the same way they took Razor's, and it's like, oh man, this beat Razor, and then Jarrett can't quite get the figure four in, so he goes back to a shin breaker to try and disarm the sweet chin music and work to the figure four, and he never gets it, and because he can't get it, Shawn's always got that thing. It's like, as long as I don't get trapped in this, we're going to be all right. This is when the time when Shawn as a babyface started adding stuff to his arsenal. So he's just putting the elbow drop, and it's like, well, shit, that's as good as Randy Savage as ever was. So I guess we don't need Randy Savage now, because Shawn Michaels can do a picture perfect elbow drop as well. Everything he is adding to the babyface arsenal, the way that it's become sweet chin music rather than the crescent kick, it's all, no pun intended, it's all clicking. And it's just we said this about Diesel last month, and I'll say it about Shawn. In the 90s, I probably would have made every business mistake with my talent that I had at my disposal that Vince McMahon made. I would have pushed Shawn. I would have pushed Diesel, because in the moments they fooled you into thinking they were changing the business.
Totally. And that's it's the Kenny Omega feeling, isn't it? If you're seeing something you can absolutely understand going in 1980, this is something other people aren't doing. add into that the energy that's with the crowd, add into how good Shawn is working that crowd. As Wade Keller says in that opinion piece, like, yeah, there might be old school people like, oh, well, he's not tall or he's not big. Same argument that go against Brett. 2 minutes into the match, no one gives a fuck. Coming out, no one gives a fuck, like, but no one would give a fuck because he's that good at doing it. And you mentioned there, like, the running spots to the finish. I've got to mention it, like I say, all that back and forth that I mentioned earlier does lead to the actual Shawn comeback, and you absolutely nailed it. He's putting together that it's GRAPPL, isn't it? That sequence of moves. He hits like the backdrop. There's the flying forearm. He hasn't quite nailed the sequence yet. There's the punches. There's the little stomp that he does, but it's all kind of coming together. Goes up to the corner, and I think he's going to do the moonsault that I loved during this period. Beautiful moonsault. Now it's a double axe handle instead. So like you say, he's like a stand-up comedian, just putting the routine together and figuring out what goes where. But it's very Brett. It's very patterned. But again, they turn it on its head. Again, like you mentioned there, Rhodey takes out his leg when the ref isn't looking. So again, you think it's going one direction, but it's going the other. And Jeff plays it brilliantly, because I'd forgotten this was the finish with Jeff literally outright telling Rhodey, grab his leg when I send him to the ropes. And he obviously, Rhodey, and this was one of those things that was eventually replayed a lot, where Jeff sends him to the ropes, Rhodey does the turn round and then goes to grab the leg. Who knew it? He's actually grabbing Jeff's leg instead, which opens up Shawn, like you say, to hit the super kick, not the crescent kick. And again, I screamed. I'm 40 years old. I'm watching this 30 odd years later. Shawn, it's the super kick. The crowd go mental, and it's like, this is your baby face, given the belt. The Diesel project is over. It is now the Shawn Michaels project, and it will get retconned, how the Shawn push came about, or that it wasn't, and whatever shit you want to attach to it. There's no doubt in my mind watching this show, he's the guy in 1995, and it's happened so quickly for someone who worked at least as a singles, a heel the entire time while he was doing this gimmick. He's immediately clicked as maybe not immediately, little bit of growing pains there, but he's clicked so soon as a babyface, and he's so good at it that it's like, strap the rocket, Shawn's your guy.
There's one last little thing, how much I love how good Shawn looks in white in general. I like white attire. He gets given that belt, and then you realize he's basically come dressed as the belt, the white strap with the gold plates. And what's he wearing? The white and the gold.
That's
and
he
does it
thing,
again.
That's the Savage thing.
A Randy Savage thing, and he does it again a year later. If you look at when he wins the title in the WrestleMania 12 Iron Man match, at WrestleMania 10, he's in the white and red, and he loses. At WrestleMania 11, he's in the white and red, and he loses. At WrestleMania 12, he's in the white and gold, because he's realized, I need to dress for the job I want, not the job I have. And he's working his way into the spot, and immediately the image of him with the belt, it looks like he was born with it attached to his waist, doesn't it? It's like, oh yeah. But was he not the champion going into this? Because there he is, he's the man. God damn it, he's a genius. He's a genius, and this is him starting to show off that he kind of knows he's a genius.
Absolutely. What would you, if you were going to, we're not GRAPPL, but if you were going to star rate it, would you actually go 5 on it?
Yeah.
Is that what you give it?
I think I'm probably generous in general, but I think this, I know this is one of my favorite matches. I remember the feelings at the time, and I love matches that I can reflect on. We've talked about this before, not quite knowing why it was better, but knowing it was better.
Yeah.
That very unique formative experience you go through as a wrestling fan. And it just, I think I love it more the older I get. And I think it's not that I don't appreciate new things, because I've watched it that many times. A lot of it is like one of them all. It's like Brett and Austin at WrestleMania 13. It's that sort of thing that you can go through the beats of it in order in your head after you've watched it so often. But I think it ages so well, because I'm pretty sure you could run whatever. I use the Kenny Omega and Bryan Danielson version as an example, but you can extend it to any era and any wrestler. Whatever the equivalent performer is of a current generation, fundamentally has this match. And it's to try and get into Dave's head now is difficult, but it's that it's that 5. They've done the things to get you the 5 or whatever. But in your heart, are you feeling, is the blood pumping through you when those wrestlers perform it the way that these two perform it here? And me, through my eyes, the answer is no. He's probably like Will Ospreay might be an example of a guy who can do everything beat for beat, but just his futuristic man in space version of this match in terms of the athleticism and in terms of the moves. And it is absolutely a nailed on. Yep, that's best in class right now. Does it put every hair on my arm up? Not every time. This match still does it now. Like, there is something about Shawn and Jeff and my love of these two men and their chemistry and everything in the pot that still does it now in a way that, like, some of it you want to say, it's rooted in nostalgia, but I know that this is the art of wrestling playing out in front of you. CM Punk is a guy that does it, and his execution isn't perfect, and I think that's what puts Punker above so many other people, is that it never matters that the Pepsi plunge looks like shit, because when he hits that fucking thing on Joe at Wembley, when you can see that he's about to put the hooks in Wembley, I'm feeling goosebumps thinking about it now. Like, somebody should do a long form podcast on that match, and indeed CM Punk's late AEW run.
So could call it. I don't know. I
think it'd make for a great listen. But the second he starts to put those hooks in, you're not bothered that it's going to look terrible coming off the top rope, because the storytellers do it better.
And that's a Cena match, isn't it? Like, I don't think anything hits right in the Punk Cena Money in the back match. Like, it's a complete mess, actually, if you just watch it with mute. But you don't, because it's wrestling, and part of it is the, bringing the crowd along and all that stuff. Like, I go a very high, strong 4.5 on it. Like, I love it. I absolutely love it. That's just, as time goes on, there's probably matches later in the world I'd rate better. Will I rate anything else in the In Your House phase higher than this? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Thinking ahead, like, this could be the peak for this era for me. It's just superb.
This is our high bar, and like, I'm just going to the trusty spreadsheet, and I'll panic there for a second because I thought I was looking at the Henry Godwin and Bam Bam Bigelow rating by mistake. But Dave has gone 4.5 on it.
4.5. Oh, but in lockstep, there we go.
Like old money, especially for Dave. That's something. But
that's a watch it. That's a recommendation. That means something, absolutely.
Like, think about how many Dynamite mid-card matches get like 4.25 or 4.5.
Yeah, it's a bastard.
And I mean, it's not on the same. It's not on the same planet as this, is it? Like, not by half.
No, superb stuff. And if you haven't seen it, and I hope anyone who's listened to us both make the case for both Shawn and Jeff, you need to go out and watch it. It is one that, like, I'd remembered fondly, but it made me so glad we've done this podcast because I got to see it back, and it just brought back all those feelings again. Unbelievable work. It
would be nice, wouldn't it, if we get to the bit of production chat live on air here, if we get to the end of season 1 and we do like an end of season awards thing for this first batch of In Your Houses, when we're talking match of the season, this is in it. And I can say that with certainty, and we're only two reviews in. It's, we're talking with the peak of the genre.
The only stuff that's going to run it close might be more Shawn stuff as we get on. But
indeed,
conversation when it comes. But I love the post match as well. Don't get that lost. There's obviously there's the Rhodey and Jeff stuff we'll get to, but Shawn celebrates. I've gotten in here with the absolute lads in National Hall. Like, again, it's just bleeding off the screen. These are my real mates.
Yeah,
the jobbers behind me. I guess I'll high five them. Yeah, whatever. Nice one, lads. But it's them too, where he's giving the proper hugs and like they seem genuinely cheddar and like happy for them. They had the match and stuff like that. I think you actually see Shawn mouth "I love you" or something like that to Nash. The love is real in the room. I love that scene. And there's another scene like it towards the at the end of the night we can get into too. But yeah, the other thing that's here as well, as we do have a really weird backstage segment as Doc Hendricks has to tell us all that, and he does a good job of it, that Jeff and the Roadie have just had a fight, and somebody pushed somebody and somebody pushed them back, and he can't get in he doesn't try very hard to get in the door, but he can't get in the door. I think he's actually live on camera scared if he bangs on it too hard the door might open, so he's like pretending he's just seeing this. And apparently the real life story, as we've kind of talked ad nauseum already, is that Jeff and Rhodey literally got the bags and they left, and they never shot the angle they were supposed to here. Unhappy about the breakup looming, unhappy about money. I think it was less so, I know Jeff's got form for leaving when he doesn't have Intercontinental titles anymore, but less that and more all that other stuff. They are genuinely, I'm sure we'll cover it in a housekeeping in the in-between, they are, outside of a house show appearance, gone, at least for the time being.
Yeah, Rhodey kind of like hitching himself to the Jeff wagon, I guess. A bigger risk for Rhodey to walk away than like Jeff always had that thing, didn't he? It was the sort of the one bit of power he had over the promoters was the fact that like he did come from money. So like Jerry Jarrett had wealth, Jeff could only fall so far in pro wrestling. I guess even when they weren't close, it's like a sort of, there's an establishment thing where it's like, you're not going to let your son sleep rough if you've got a big mansion in Tennessee somewhere. And I think like that was why the risk was always a bit less for Jeff if he didn't feel that something was right. Rhodey didn't have that to lean on. He was, if anything, his family name was cursed, wasn't it? And he had to, what if this was this biggest ever opportunity that he was walking away from? And big deal. I've got to point out, sorry, just before we completely leave Shawn and Jeff behind, even as he's telling, and you're right, I think it wasn't I love you, a proper earnest, nice moment. Angry young man, Shawn, shooting on the people that didn't say happy birthday to him the day before. Did you remember that, right? And he's like, he says, and anyone that didn't call me my birthday, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. And then I Googled it. It was his 30th birthday the day before, and obviously somebody had not said happy birthday. Probably, let's not be crass about this. Probably like somebody either in that shot or maybe a woman that he was in a relation. Who knows? But you just sense that there was somebody that he was going to like fire a shot at, and he was like, I know when I'll do this, when I'm celebrating winning a title on pay-per-view. Just an all-time dick, just the best.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I noted that I was like, that's weird. What a weird thing to say in the middle of your celebration party. Maybe it was the blonde girl who was sat front row that they kept going to in the shots there as well. But absolutely wild. But of course, we'll talk more on the story of Jeff and Rhodey coming out of this. Like we said, Jeff's got a dad who's currently working in WCW. I don't know what Rhodey's thinking with the where the Armstrongs climb on, but we'll follow that note through. But past that into the semi-main event of this one, as we have Owen Hart and Yokozuna teaming up once again against what as you said earlier, is likely going to become a podcast favorite here of the allied powers of Lex Luger and the British Bulldog. And we're starting hot, Michael, because we need to start with this song, the Allied Powers song, the flags as well, because there's flags here as well. But I mean, I love it. Rule Britannia and Lex Luger's theme, basically the two national anthems, played back to back, mixed together in ways that Jericho could only dream of. Is this the first example of that happening, where they did that, where they took two existing themes and did the back and forth? Because I remember thinking this was unbelievable voodoo by WWF that they managed to put these two themes together and have it sound so fucking great. I love this theme. Oh man, this was like the Galaxy Caramel of themes, wasn't it? It was that smooth and beautiful to listen to. Like, I'm not speaking sort of out of class here. We're not exactly the most patriotic of sorts in our country. You kind of end up being a bit weird if you are patriotic. We're not like in America, pledging allegiance to the flag any day of the week. I think the Allied Powers theme is my national anthem, because just when it's getting a little bit too flag noncy, it cuts back into Lex's theme. So you're like, dun, 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 dun. And you're like, I was nearly like sort of praising the Queen there, but it's all right because Lex is back. And like, the Allied Powers. I was a Brett guy over a Lex guy. Dirty secret, but I was never a Davey Boy Smith guy as a baby face. Not really, anyway. Put them together with massive biceps and matching trunks. I was like, yes, that's what I want to see these two people do. I want to see them kind of out of the way of the main event. Like, don't need them in the headline matches. Stick them together and you're good to go. Love the Allied Powers. And it is, at the same time, though, like the grown-up head on me can't help but look at it and go, like, you've got a roster that's pretty thin. Like, I feel like Davey Boy and Luger could have done jobs for you at some point in this card as like singles act. So it does seem like an embarrassment of riches to be able to be like, we'll just team them together and do that instead. But at this point, we're in a weird place for both of them, aren't we? Like, Luger hasn't got long for this world, and I've got Davies in this. I don't know what you make of the look. He's like slimline Davey Boy with like the long hair. He's not my Davey Boy, I'm not saying I would like him to be back on the steg, but he's a different man, but he's not on the steg or on a different version of the steg or whatever is happening here at this point in his life. It's a weird day. He's not quite British Bulldog level, is he, at this point? So I guess makes sense. I felt that like Lex's hair was too long for WWF Lex.
Like he's growing in his WCW hair. I think mentally he started to think about like his return.
He's ready to go.
Yeah, he's ready to go.
He's good to go.
How weird was it, man, seeing Lex and Yokozuna together in the like opening portion of a tag match when it was once like this main event idea that failed.
Vince
like it's quite something, isn't it? Yeah,
it says like the US in chapter, is it? I'll never forget that. Maybe mentions like the history there. Nice little bit of don't often get that from Vince. He's actually brought up a bit of history. But yeah, how times have changed. Yoko's in this like tag team where we're teasing dissension, and Luger is just in this mid card team with Bulldog when he was once the Great Hope.
That's it. You wouldn't have. It's funny, isn't it, the Allied Powers? Because there is this, like, obviously watching in hindsight, there's this constant, like, shadow of everything that there is to come. Like, when you know, as we're going to get to, what happens with Lex and then what happens with Davey just before Lex leaves, that, like, you're watching the Allied Powers thinking, oh, you're doomed, lads. This is, but you watch them, and I remember at the time thinking, well, they're certain to win the belts. Like the Allied Powers are definitely going to win the tag titles, and then we got what we got instead. Very weird.
It is. It's a strange kind of place that you're in. It's like I say, the dissension early on again also makes you believe that like, okay, Yoko and Owen are clearly losing these belts here. As a match, it's not much. Davey takes the heat. Luger gets a hot tag. That's pretty much the match, isn't it? I did enjoy the double backdrop that they did to Yoko, even if it was kind of physically a bit rubbish, but it was genuinely impressive because it was Yokozuna, and like this commentary sells it like it's an earthquake in here because it does feel like it's like, oh my god! Like again, the past the body slam was probably more impressive, but like it still works when you bump Yoko. And then, it all comes to nothing, unfortunately. And they are kind of a bit of a loser team for that reason, aren't they? The Allied Powers, as they look like they've got the win. But Owen comes off the top. Yoko doesn't even bother with the bonsai, just does a little leg drop and pins Lex, and that's it. It's like we get that later with the finish of the main too. It's like I'm not even going to waste me finish here. Leg drop will do. Can't be arsed, lads. Let's go home.
It was a big night for fat lads hitting the big stuff, wasn't it? Like Yoko beats Lex and Mabel beats Razor. It's like, don't forget, like while the muscle guys might be getting smaller, the fat lads can still sort of dominate and decimate. And there's probably a bit of the attempt to protect what Mabel does was probably thought about in putting Yoko over as strong as they did it, because he looked absolutely shagged in the middle of this, didn't he? There's a point where he's got his usual nerve hold on to rest, and he's so knackered looking that I swear, like Fuji starts waving the flag just as like a distraction, just to give the fans something else to boo and look at, because Yoko's just not. Yeah, Yoko is not moving, and the sweat is just pissing out of him. I love Yoko, and I still think like you really have to just marvel every time Yokozuna does anything, because if you saw a person that large walking down the street, you couldn't imagine them moving the way that Yoko moves. But it's a physical game, and he's got a minute at a time in him, and then he needs to rest, and then it's another minute and then a rest. It's not tenable, is it?
He has to be in a team with this, but you literally can't do anything else with him. But they hide him well enough, and Owen's the perfect partner, isn't he, for the role? But yeah, ends up being pretty much a routine win for them, which takes us. We go be backstage. We have Shawn on the little red phone, as we talked about last time. Definitely believe that Homer, if they just rang that number, me and Shawn had a nice little personal chat. They definitely lead you to believe that. They do that on purpose, don't they? It's like if you ring, it's not just a pre-recorded message. You could just have a little chat with Shawn Michaels. He'll tell you all about his match. But yeah, he's the face for that this month. We obviously get the endless replays of Sid talking on Shawn, as we've talked about from the April 3rd Raw. Bit of background on Diesel as well in the video package, and his dodgy elbow. I haven't seen Dr. James Andrews, who, like I say, I go to for anything big or small, even to this day. He's the man who can sort you out. And yeah, I thought they'd do like some big entrances for the Lumberjacks here for our main event. They kind of just wander out, don't they? Like Luger, maybe they're stuck for time, because Luger and Bulldog are only just getting back into the backstage set, as like the Lumberjacks are just piling out next to them, aren't they? It's almost like you're not supposed to see it. It's almost like we should have been on like one of the backstage segments or something like that.
Yeah,
they just come out full on house show, innit?
Except Shawn, obviously. Shawn and Diesel coming out together. It's like, oh yeah, here's my real friend. And then you see in the match as well, like Shawn just Razor and Kid just stand together. Don't they? Like the whole match, giggling away to each other, popping each other, like jumping ahead a little bit. But there's a bit at the end. You can tell the four of them are desperate to get a beauty shot, like at the front of all the baby faces, as if to say, like, we run this town now. Get the click sign up, like shove your BSK up your arse. Brett, you're finished. Like all four of them trying to get in at least one shot all together.
Oh, totally. And then, like I say, it's all over the entrances that Shawn is doing as he's getting pulled back by the fans. Again, he's eating the scenery, coming out in his red t-shirt next to Diesel. And yeah, you're left in no doubt of who the proper friends are. And then we get a lumberjack match. I mean, what can you really say? I mean, we talked about last month, as much as we had a good time talking that In Your House, it was like, and then the main event. This time it's, and then the main event plus Lumberjacks. And I think the Lumberjacks are probably the strongest part of this match, because what's going on, bell to bell is not. You do get a Diesel attempt at a plancher in there that's like, again, somebody who's allegedly injured. You probably shouldn't be doing out there. But outside of that, they're just going through the motions. And again, speaking of Shawn, the structure of the match and all of the Lumberjack stuff actually seems more built to get Shawn over, because like there's numerous points in here where, like, obviously we've got the all the different Lumberjacks going at each other, and there's like this weird standoff until you realise they're just biding time because Shawn has to climb to the top, because of course he's the good Lumberjack and he has to hit the big dive to them, which he then spends. You mentioned earlier about the click standing in the corner. You can tell he's in the corner fuming to Sean Waltman, going, the fuckers didn't catch me properly, or something like that. He's having it's everyone else's fault, it's never his fault. Like, there's a spot like that in there. There's a second one where Sean comes off the top as well and gets Sid from behind, isn't it, towards the finish of the match in there as well. But that's, again, speaking of like the theme of this podcast, that's where the actual action is in this match. It's those set pieces. It's the Lumberjacks taking out Diesel. It's the baby faces, mostly Shawn, coming for the big save, and then Diesel and Sid, they're just lumbering around in ring.
Yeah, it's a total smoke and mirrors thing, this, isn't it? It's almost like an acknowledgement that the first In Your House match was a real turkey, and they've got to like figure out a way to just, as you say, distract and kind of find something else to look at while Diesel and Sid don't do too much. I like Diesel's plancher for how it illustrates just how many people there are out there. It's like, I've got to use all 7 foot of myself stretched lengthways to try and take you all out at once. Yeah.
Makes logical sense, actually, yeah.
they do quite a good job of the sheer massive humanity out there. It's a weird sort of production gaff for WWE. They don't do a very good job of capturing the Mabel attack on Diesel as it's happening. Like, it's much better in replays and in the build up to the match at SummerSlam than it is here. It kind of, there's too much going on. They don't quite get that. Obviously, there's a big focused upon bit about Mabel being a bit of a difference maker out there. So that's unusual for WWE to not hit that as cleanly as they would perhaps like. But I like it's just by the end there's a sense when either a push is failing or a feud is coming to an end, and it's just everybody just wants it done and dusted, and it kind of betrays the fiction a little bit. Like, Sid starts fighting some heels in order for Shawn to hit them with the axe handle, and it's like, why is that? And then there's no reason for it whatsoever.
He just does.
Yeah, just gets out the ring and starts fighting people so that Shawn can do the axe handle. Diesel does, to be fair, he targets the corporation because he knows they're the Lumberjacks that are going to help Sid the most. But then just like hits him with a big boot and like quite slickly moves into position for the pin off the big boot. And it's like, you all just want this done. Everybody has ran out of creative steam with all of this, and you can feel it.
And you'd like to say they'd learned a lesson, but like you say, the most notable part of the match is Mabel taking out Diesel, because we've got another one. We've got another turkey we've got to get to here. Yeah, that's the main stuff. Like, they do, to be fair, they let Sid get a bit of a visual pin, doesn't he? Like, he hits the power bomb. And then rather than go for the pin, and this is pure Sidney Udy want to protect his finish, he goes around high-fiving all the heels rather than actually go for the pin. He takes as long, so actually similar to last month, isn't it? Takes as long
Same
as
spot,
possible, and then eventually goes for it, and then Diesel's allowed to kick out. So they protect him to some extent, but at the same note as you, yeah, he literally climbs out the ring and fights the Lumberjacks for no reason other than showing it the double axe handle, which does lead to the finish, which again, I was questioning. I was like, well, why is these just pins with a big boot rather than a powerbomb, which is kind of the point with these two. You want to visualize that them powerbombing each other. That's the selling point. And I was thinking, well, maybe it's the elbow, but he did a plancher. Like, can't he? I feel like he could do a powerbomb, or maybe he didn't trust himself after the plancher. That's kind of weird. And yeah, it is literally on to the next thing. Sid is dead, at least for the time being, as a main event act. And yeah, the hero wins in Diesel. And like you said, the babyface's pose, and yeah, that little shot at the end. I think there's a photo out there somewhere, because it'd make a great photo if there isn't, of literally it's Shawn, Kid, Razor, and Diesel right front and center as the show goes off air, throwing up clicks lines. And I wonder whether there's a Jim Cornette angry on headset backstage going, don't zoom in, because the camera proper Carter zooms out and you don't get that proper shot. You can just, for the sickos like us, see it happening, and yeah, the click go off air, stood in the ring with no one watching.
There was a magazine that I had at the time called I think it was called Superstars of the New Generation, and it's individual profiles on all the wrestlers on the roster at the time. Bulldog gets in there twice because it's got Allied Powers and it's got his heel turn because it must have just been right on deadline. So there's a few little curios like that in this magazine, but the cover is them in the ring at the end of In Your House too. Like the four of them doing their high sign, all the baby faces all together. It's Diesel sort of, I think he's staring down the lens. I think Shawn and Kid might be sort of touching sort of the tips of the fingers. Razor's there as well. And then all the other sort of, like, Aldo's allowed in a bit, isn't he? Because he's like a side chick of the clique.
The original it's carrying them back.
And who's not there? And who's not there? It's Brett, isn't it? The kind of, and you know, like, I'm sure Brett didn't want to be reduced to being a lumberjack, but it's sort of pointed, isn't it? That it's like, this is our WWF now, mate. You had your go and we're having it now. Like, and it's in little ways.
Even down to the click sign, which is apparently like a thing they stole from Brett, because Brett used to do the hormones, didn't he? Again, some international cowboys. They're getting all the shots at the lads, but yeah, unless you've got anything else there. Speaking of Brett, obviously the show ends with a bit of the fantastic song, which will have accompanied this podcast, and a bit of they're always great at that, throwing those highlights videos together immediately as the show ends. What magic was that? They managed to figure that out, but not where the Coliseum home video ends, although it should have. We do actually get a bit of Brett from live in the building, as he is there when he works with Jean-Pierre Lafitte in a dark match, and that's followed by a match that I would like the 15 minutes back from, which is The Undertaker versus Cameron Mustafa in, according to the Torch, is their touring casket match that they're apparently doing at all the shows during this period. Rough stuff, and to be honest, I thought the Brett Jean-Pierre Lafitte bit might be a bit of a oasis in the desert, but that's not up to much snuff as far as bonuses go.
No, I seem to remember through, it might have been the Observer, but one of the prominent like outlets at the time, that Brett would like, there was a bit like, for all that he's Brett and he just doesn't have bad matches, it's not in his DNA to have bad matches. There was absolutely kind of a Bret Hart house show match that he would get like a bit of a reputation for, like, not picking his spots, that's unfair, but not really necessarily having like an A game every night. And I think that was something that like Shawn would lob back at him, because he was like, I kind of only have one speed and I will go out there and I will go backstage and I will say, follow that. And I'll do it because I'm a bit of an arsehole, but it's ultimately because I only have this one setting. Go, go, go. And it was cheeky because he'd skive half the summer or he'd get out of doing jobs. So he was a much bigger bastard, while Brett was making towns all the time and probably had to protect his body a little bit more. Had to. But this was one of those for me with Brett. Like, it's not without its charms. Like, there's an unbelievable turnbuckle that Jean-Pierre Lafitte takes a la Brett, but he takes it like he launches himself Braun Breaker speed at that turnbuckle. He's got those, like, he's just got those bumps in him, hasn't he? Like, that he likes taking. Obviously, it'd get him over all over again, like years later. But there's a point where like Monsoon is talking about how like the fans don't like Jean-Pierre Lafitte, but they're just dead. They're not booing, they're just dead. They don't really get this character yet. Then they'd obviously have the feud. Next month, we're going to have a great match to talk about, but this is not that. This is them like feeling stuff out for another day. And it ends up does the same finishing sequence that he beat Hakushi with a month ago. Like, does that victory
thinking
or he
of
pulls the legs?
video viewers, is he? He's thinking,
that's it.
No one's going to see this. It's fine. It's just for the house. Yeah, it is. It's
and speaking, Benno, of things we've covered a month ago, how the fuck have we started a podcast where we've reviewed The Undertaker versus Karma twice, and it's not even appeared on an In Your House?
Oh. It's a nice treat, isn't it, for the video viewers and for the people live in the building. Again, like it is, Undertaker's got his formula at this point in the world, and he kind of would for a lot of his career. For people who love Undertaker, I'm sure you'd say this is not my Undertaker, but my God, is there nothing there? The people get to see a casket, they get to see Kama, and it's one of Undertaker's worst feuds, and unbelievably, despite not being advertised, we've had to live through it twice here. There's nothing going on.
Stan Lane calls Paul Bearer a buffet buster, which will always like
it's
flag the needless cruelty. Not good.
He's done better things in his career as well, but they're the bonuses. Watch them if you're the sickos out there, but unless there's anything else, that brings us to the end of another In Your House, Michael. I enjoyed In Your House 1. In Your House 2, proper stuff, mate. There's a high bar now, I feel like, going forward. You might call it a one-match show, but I felt like the support and stuff there definitely held its own. Was a big fan of the opener as well. But yeah, you give me a match as good as Shawn and Jeff every month, and we'd be off to the races. What a fun one this was.
Absolutely. I knew, obviously, this was coming as soon as it was. And I was just like, I was so excited as we were recording In Your House 1. I was then thinking, well, we're nearly In Your House 2. I can't believe the fireworks factory's already here. And like, now the real work starts, Benno, because there's some magic along the way, but I'm going to lead you down some pretty dark paths over the next few months. There's one in particular coming up that I'm not going to share the details of, but needless to say, there is a thing that occurs on one of these shows that the cameras don't catch, and it is my number one WWE Vault, Bret Hart, Tom McGee single piece of WWE footage from the moment I read about this thing that happens that you never see, and it's coming up soon on our little In Your House Odyssey very, very soon, and I cannot wait to get there. I say I cannot wait to get there. You'll be miserable when we get there, but I cannot wait to get there all the same.
Can't wait to talk about it. That's the beauty of this. When it's good, when it's bad, it's going to be fun. And we're going to have plenty of both coming forward. But yeah, before we get out of here, Michael, as we always say, we'll have a housekeeping coming up in 2 weeks, which will be our bridge to the next main review, which will be In Your House 3, the triple header. Or is it the triple feather? Maybe you'll find out on housekeeping. But yeah, if people would like us to talk about anything particular, they can let us know on housekeeping, can't they, Michael?
They can indeed, yes. We'll plug it again as we have done here. We're trying to cheat the algorithms. We're trying to scare the dead man, and we're trying to get as many people listening. We're trying to get as many house guests as we possibly can, aren't we, Benno? So as for that, we want if you want to leave us a 5-star match review, you can request absolutely anything. It doesn't have to be a 5-star match, but we'll happily watch one. Anything from the new generation, perhaps, that isn't included within this In Your House watch along. We have just covered Bret Hart versus Jeff Jarrett, featuring William Shatner from Raw in 1995. If there's stuff from TV that you might be interested in, we've talked about obviously Shawn and Sid, and lots of Bam Bam Bigelow being a complete dork, anything like that. Or if you just want to sort of have me and Benno chop up something new or something contemporary or something CM Punk, because we both love him, pretty much anything we will look at, as long as you chuck a 5-star review our way, because that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to game the system, but we'll have a little bit of fun on the way. We'll read your review out in one of our housekeeping episodes, just as we did for Ryan in our last one. So yeah, get them sent in, and we'll get it watched.
Absolutely, and yeah, every little helps. Any reviews, any comments, subscriptions are worth the weight in gold. Might have something fun coming up for subscribers. Chase June for the next housekeeping to find detail on that. But yeah, looking forward to the next show in a couple of weeks, Michael. But until then, where can people find us all? You can find me on Twitter at Benson Richard E and Blue Sky. I'm on Twitter /X at Michael Hamflett. And we'll catch you again next time for more housekeeping. But until then, thanks for the house.